I want you to, if you can, close your eyes right now. Just trust me on this. I'm asking for a reason. Open up your imagination for me and listen carefully. I want you to picture this in your mind's eye. It's a gathering of friends in the dark of the night. It's cold outside. The wind is blowing. Maybe they're outdoors. Maybe that wind is banging against their windows. And this night, in this gathering, to its participants, feels like it will go on forever as the moon looms up above. And together, this gathering is telling stories. But not just any stories. Scary stories. Of ghosts, of monsters, of cursed houses and bloody killers. Perhaps they're sat around a campfire. Perhaps they're children gathered at a sleepover. Perhaps even it's a family during Christmas time in the Victorian era, as reciting ghost stories at that time of the year was quite a popular tradition back then. No matter the place, the telling of scary stories is something which has occurred throughout all of human history. In fact, the oldest story about a haunted house dates all the way back to ancient Rome, in a story entitled Mostellaria. The sharing of these tales is a ritual of sorts, perhaps one of humanity's oldest. Whether it's happening because you're reading something in a published novel, or you're hearing something a friend on the playground is telling you, we are always trying to scare each other. And of course, with the unbelievably fast spread of the internet in the past few decades, it's of no surprise that we took this ancient tradition with us into the digital age. We are now telling one another these stories across the so-called global village of the internet. And of course, these stories reflect our growing anxieties about the big shift in our culture that came with this digital age. Slender Man, in fact, perhaps the most famous of the internet's horror creations, has been speculated by many to reflect insecurities about the growing surveillance state that has inevitably come about as part of the internet spread. But he is just one monster among many. Scary stories online can take on all sorts of forms, but the form I'm discussing tonight is that of creepypastas. Creepypasta is a word which originated from the phrase copypasta, a story which would be copied and pasted across the internet, which is how most early internet horror proliferated, stories being copied from one forum to the next, from a blog to another blog, and so on and so forth. Despite the fact that at one time they were seemingly the most popular form of horror storytelling online, creepypastas as a whole get a bad rap nowadays, despite the fact that internet horror on the whole frankly seems more popular than it's ever been. People talk about them in such a way that they're almost half embarrassed about them. They think of them as silly, childish, reflective of a lot of people's edgelord teen phases. And there's a few different reasons for that, but one of them is that because for whatever reason, during the 2010s, a lot of tweens who discovered already existing creepypastas took a lot of the concepts that already existed in them and ran with them, writing their own stories and taking them in brand new directions. And, of course, seeing as these were literal children who were writing, the end result was a lot of very poorly written fiction, leading to the whole category of creepypasta now having a very negative reputation. In fairness to these kids, they were just trying to express themselves, and if you were one of those kids, I'm not judging you. And also, some of these stories were pretty bad to begin with. While there are undeniably a lot of terrible creepypastas out there, including some supposedly very famous ones like the original Jeff the Killer story, not every creepypasta is bad. Some of them, in fact, remain truly brilliant pieces of horror to this day, despite their original impact and content having been forgotten. And my favorite from this category, the one which I'd personally say is perhaps the greatest creepypasta of them all, is Ben Drowned. Nowadays, Ben Drowned is remembered as a photo of Link from Legend of Zelda with bloody eyes, a silly, try-hard image that some might say was reflective of the edgelord tendencies of creepypasta fans on the whole at the time. But this image of what Ben Drowned is kind of incorrect. In fact, I'd go as far as to say it's completely incorrect. A bloody-eyed Link never appears in the original tale. This is just one of many ways the story has been forgotten or bastardized as the years have gone by. This forgetfulness goes even further. Many actually don't know that Ben Drowned wasn't just a story about a haunted video game. When that part of the story ended, it led into another one. one about cults, time travel, and monsters well beyond our understanding. Tonight, I want to set the record straight. I want to take you through the story of Ben Drowned to clear the misconceptions and to make you appreciate it for what it truly is, for its positives and its negatives. This isn't just a great story, in my opinion, incidentally. This is a story which actually changed my life. How that can be the case, I'll get into much later. But for now, settle down, turn off the lights, and just let me take you on a journey. Join me, won't you? Before the events of the Haunted Cartridge arc begin, we need to speak about two other videos which act as sort of a prequel to it. They aren't directly canon to the story, but they do foreshadow events which will occur within it, and so they are worth taking a look at. It's sort of like an epigraph at the beginning of a novel. The quote that the author is using may not be a direct one-to-one reference to whatever's happening in the book, but it sets a tone and gives you an idea of maybe some themes or ideas that the author is trying to explore. These two videos, like nearly every main video that was a part of this story, was uploaded to the YouTube channel of a young man who went by the name Jadisable online. I've heard some people say it as Jaduzable, and I may end up saying it like that later on in the video, but I've always read it as Jadisable, so that's what I'm saying. One of these two videos we'll be discussing at the end of the arc, but one of them we are going to discuss now. The video we are talking about right now is entitled Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, Rosa. This is a gameplay video from that very video game, uploaded about a year before the events of this story began, where the player talks to the NPC Rosa in the game, showing the viewer all of her dialogue options. In the game, Rosa is someone who can see the future, and she gives the player several vague omens.
Why is he smiling? The father. Is it the father behind him? Don't open it. Whether or not you win the game matters not. It's if you bought it.
Every one of these warnings, in a video which seemingly had nothing to do with our terrible tale, would eventually come to pass as the events of the story unfolded. With that introduction out of the way, let's begin at the true beginning of the story. Like many horrible things on the internet, Ben Drowned began on 4chan, specifically on its X board, which was where supernatural events, both supposedly real and definitely unreal, were spoken about. In the post, Jadisable introduces himself, saying he had just started college and had just moved into a dorm for the first time. Having recently procured an old Nintendo 64, he decided to drive into the surrounding neighborhood where a community yard sale was occurring to see if he could find any old games. He speaks to a few people, buys 1 or 2 games, and prepares to leave. I began to drive out of the neighborhood when one last house caught my attention. I still have no idea why it did. There were no cars there, and only one table was set up with the random junk on it, but something drew me there. I usually trust my gut on these things, so I got out of the car and I was greeted by an old man. His outward appearance was, for lack of a better word, displeasing. It was odd. If you asked me to tell you why I thought he was displeasing, I couldn't really pinpoint anything. There was just something about him that put me on edge. I can't explain it. All I can tell you is that if it wasn't in the middle of the afternoon and there were other people within shouting distance, I would not have even thought of approaching this man. He flashed a crooked smile at me and asked what I was looking for, and immediately I noticed that he must be blind in one of his eyes. His right eye had that glazed-over look about it. I forced myself to look into his left eye instead, trying not to offend, and asked him if he had any old video games. The man says yes and goes into his house. When he returns, he has an old game cartridge in his hand, with the label scraped off and just the word Majora written across the front. Jadisable tells us that he was secretly very happy about this, as Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask is the game he had secretly been hoping to find, as it is one of his favorites. The old man tells him it used to belong to a kid who lived in the area, and that Jadisable can have it for free. I thanked the man, and the man smiled at me and wished me well, saying, "Goodbye, then." At least that's what it sounded like to me. All the way in the car ride home, I had a nagging doubt that the man had said something else. My fears were confirmed when I booted up the game, and there was only one save file named simply Ben in all capitals. Goodbye, Ben. That is what he was saying. I felt bad for the man. Obviously a grandparent and obviously going senile. And I, for some reason or another, must have reminded him of his grandson, Ben. Touched by this, Jadisable decides to keep the kid's old save file and makes his own. However, he quickly runs into trouble. Characters in dialogue sometimes call him Ben in all capitals instead of Link, which is what he entered his name as in at the start, as most players tend to do. Frustrated by this, he eventually just deletes the Ben file. And this moment right here is where the trouble begins. But before we can get into any of it, it's probably a good time to discuss Majora's Mask as a game on its own, before the haunting of it actually begins in full. Understanding the content of the game will help you better understand the story as a whole, as the whole story continues to be in dialogue with the game and its features as it continues on. If you're already familiar with Majora's Mask, skip to the time code listed here. Also, I'm going to be using footage from both the original release and the 3DS remaster, so if you see differences in graphical quality, that's why. Majora's Mask is the sequel to The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, the first 3D Zelda game and something frequently cited as one of the greatest video games ever made. The game was extremely successful when it launched, and so Nintendo wanted to make a sequel, and they wanted to make one fast. To make things simpler, they decided to reuse assets from the previous game for it, mainly for characters, and this ended up being central to the plot of the game they ended up conceiving as a follow-up. Majora's Mask centers on the child version of Link from the previous game, sometime after its events, in the Lost Woods trying to find Navi, his fairy guide and companion from the first game. However, he very quickly encounters Skull Kid, a strange, troublemaking kid of undeterminate species who lives in the woods alone. And the Skull Kid isn't himself. He's wearing a mask, which seems to have given him some extra power. Using this power to steal Link's horse and items, Skull Kid flees into a hollow trunk, and Link chases after him, and in doing so he ends up falling down a strange hole. He lands safely and ends up encountering the Skull Kid yet again. During this confrontation, though, the Skull Kid doesn't just run away. He uses the mask's power to turn Link into a Deku Scrub in a scene which, to this day, honest to God, haunts me. After this occurs, Link is rescued by the Happy Mask Salesman, a traveling salesman of facial disguises with his own terrifyingly blank smile. With his help, Link is transformed back into a human and is tasked with getting the mask back from Skull Kid. This mask is the titular Majora's Mask, a dangerous artifact which was once in the salesman's care until the Skull Kid stole it. Not because he wanted power or anything like that, but just because he thought it was neat. He thought it looked cool. However, after putting it on, the mask possessed Skull Kid and has turned him evil. To make matters worse, by falling down that hole in that hollow tree, Link has entered a whole new world entirely. He has slipped into another dimension, one parallel to the kingdom of Hyrule he knows, but this time called Termina. Here, the citizens of Clocktown are preparing for the Carnival of Time, and these very citizens look very familiar to Link. Everyone in this world, in fact, looks just like someone from Hyrule, just in new roles and new names, taking on different responsibilities than they had in his own world. This is incidentally how they utilized the pre-existing assets from Ocarina of Time, by setting up this sort of parallel world storyline where everyone is kind of like their counterpart, but a little bit different. Link's quest to get the mask back is going to be quite troubled, though, because with the power of it, the Skull Kid is causing the moon above Termina, which has the most unnerving, grimacing face, by the way, to fall. Specifically, it will fall in 3 days, at which point all of Termina will be destroyed, and everyone will perish. After getting back the Ocarina of Time and watching the moon nearly fall once, Link uses it to time travel to the start of the 3 days. It is his job now to travel across the land, to awaken the 4 giants of Termina who can stop the moon from falling, and to then confront Skull Kid himself to get the mask back before the people of Termina die due to its malevolence and distaste for life. The game, as such, is played in a cycle of 3 days, with each quote-unquote day being about 18 minutes long. Characters throughout Termina will follow a fixed schedule, going about the same actions every single day of that cycle. That means you can, on occasion, use your foreknowledge to intervene, like when you stop a robbery in Clocktown you saw occur in a previous cycle, for example. However, this game is played over multiple cycles of 3 days, and you need to reset the timeline every time before the moon falls. And unfortunately, resetting the timeline has consequences for you as a player. Items, for example, with the exception of masks or ones used for puzzle solving in dungeons, are lost at the end of each cycle, and anyone you help in the game's many side quests end up back in trouble like they were at the very start. The game as a whole also just has this really surreal atmosphere. The music, the visuals, a lot of just small moments throughout are all just kind of unnerving. For example, this is what happens when you finish the first cycle and have reset the timeline and have returned to the happy mask salesman to tell him that you do not have his mask back. The entire game has this ever so unsettling vibe. Between the ticking time bomb that's the moon high in the sky with its angry grimacing face looming up above, or that nightmarish bit where you're transformed into a Deku, or the fact that when you transform into anyone by choice in this game with a mask, it happens like this. It's all just kinda disturbing. On top of all this, the game's 3-day cycle just gives it a very fatalistic or existentialist vibe. You can't really help anyone. You can get rewarded. Sometimes you get masks from people for helping them out, and that feels good. You get to keep masks during each cycle reset, and you can use them to solve other puzzles and help in other side quests. You still see them in trouble, and you can't really do anything about them. That lady I mentioned who gets mugged is always going to get mugged every cycle unless you take the time to stop the thief. Vibes aside, gameplay follows the usual Legend of Zelda formula. You go to new areas, access the dungeon within it, solve puzzles within the dungeon, fight the boss in the dungeon, and then you awaken the giant that the boss was imprisoning. Rinse and repeat. However, the ticking of the 3-day cycle means everything is done on a time crunch. If you're in the middle of a dungeon and the timer is running out, you may have to start all over again. Personally, I love this game. It's one of my favorites from the series, but I can't remember a time when I haven't relied on a guide to speed things up as a result of this. I know that may be cheating, or I'm not getting the full experience or whatever, but I'd otherwise find it far too stressful to complete. If you can complete this game without needing that kind of help, I congratulate you. I wish I had your Chad Gamer energy, or whatever. In any case, Majora's Mask is a weird one, but for some it is their favorite Zelda game, and in relation to Ben Drowned, it's already got this very otherworldly, dreamlike feel to it, and a unique gimmick with the 3-day cycle that other Zelda games lack. Both of these things will contribute to the story as a whole, as you will see as our night goes onward. Let's return to Jadisable now, shall we, now that we have all this context? I think he's been waiting long enough. He continues to play after deleting the Ben file, and discovers that now no name is there in dialogue at all anymore. Before it would sometimes, as I said, use Ben's name instead, but now there's no name at all, not even Link. Frustrated by this, Jad puts the game down for the night and returns to it the following morning, attempting to do the 4th day glitch. If you time it correctly on the final day, you can speak to the astronomer and he asks you to look through his telescope, and if you do it just as the timer is running out, it ends up giving you extra time, so you can continue to do a little bit more stuff before having to properly reset. It's not an intended part of the game, it's just that talking to that character at that time glitches the game out. And here is where our trouble truly begins. When I pressed B to exit the telescope, instead of being greeted by the astronomer, I found myself in the Majora boss fight room at the very end of the game, the trippy boxed-in arena. I was staring at Skull Kid hovering above me. There was no sound, just him floating in the air above and the background music, which was regular for the area, but still creepy. Immediately, my palms began to sweat. This was definitely not normal. Skull Kid never appears here. I tried moving around the area, but no matter where I went, Skull Kid would always be facing me, looking at me, but not saying anything. Nothing would happen though, and this kept up for around 60 seconds. I thought the game had bugged or something, but I was beginning to doubt that very much. Suddenly, the game teleports Jad back to the center of Clocktown, but a very different version of it than you usually see in the game. It's empty, there are no people in it, and glitched out, with a lot of textures seemingly being broken. And in addition to that, there's some weird backwards version of the Song of Healing playing in the background. This is a song that you learn very early on in the game and is used at multiple times, and this backwards version just drones on and on and on as he wanders through Clocktown. I felt that I personally was in some kind of danger. Perhaps the most chilling thing was the music. It was the Song of Healing, ripped straight from the game itself, but played in reverse. The music would get louder, building up so as if you should expect something to pop out at you, but nothing ever did, and the constant loop began to wear on my mental state. Every now and then, I would also hear the faint laugh of the happy mask salesman in the background, just quiet enough so that I wasn't sure if I was just hearing things, but just loud enough to keep me determined to find him. I looked in all 4 zones of Clocktown, only to find nothing. West Clocktown had me walking on air. The entire area felt broken. Hopelessly broken, as the reverse Song of Healing repeated for what must have been the 50th time. I just remember standing in the middle of South Clocktown, realizing I had never felt so alone in a video game before. And this is when something else occurs. A statue appears before Jedusable's avatar. A statue of a strange, dead-eyed version of Link. This in-game is an intended feature. In the final dungeon, you unlock a song called The Elegy of Emptiness, which creates a statue of your avatar, as you can see here. This statue can be used to solve puzzles, for example, using it to weigh down a switch that you need to step on in order to open a door. The thing is, though, that Jedusable didn't summon it, and this is when the statue begins to follow him around Clocktown. Now, so far this probably sounds all fairly cliche, and you may be right, but one thing that we'll get to later in this video is how the story manages to avoid a lot of the pitfalls of other haunted video game stories online. The main issue people have with these stories, besides the many variations on kid's cartoon character from a video game having blood red eyes, is that anyone who's stumbled onto a game like this can just turn it off. There's never any real threat or danger to them as a person. That is not the case in Ben Drowned, however. In this story, the terror Jedusable feels is almost seemingly supernatural in nature, like the game itself has reached through the screen and entered his psyche to fuck with his emotions deliberately and directly, not just through glitches or jump scares. And as such, because it seems to be influencing him, he tells us it all felt so real, and he never even thought of turning the game off as it went on. Soon after all this began, Jad begins to record his gameplay, and this is where we get our first Majora's Mask video of the story, titled Day4.wmv. That's right, you heard me correctly. There's video. One thing that sets the story apart from other haunted video game creepypastas is that there was actual footage of the hauntings from the very start, instead of just badly photoshopped images like there were for Sonic.exe or for that Godzilla one. Let's watch it, shall we? Link enters the swordsman's school, only for the statue to appear once again. He attempts to attack it with no effect. There's a flash of the happy mask salesman's face, and the Skull Kid's scream plays several times. Trying to leave the building, he spawns inside a tunnel as the reverse song of healing begins to play again, and the statue chases him down as he tries to run away. He ends up coming out into Southern Clocktown before the game glitches yet again. And here he is faced with the Skull Kid watching him in that area from the end of the game once again. And then this happens. Link respawns, once again in the same area, as Skull Kid watches him, mockingly from above. Jad pulls out his ocarina, attempting to play a song to somehow escape, and he fails yet again. He's once again back in the arena, back with Skull Kid, who remains just floating there, as Link now lies on the ground, unmoving. You've met with the terrible fate, haven't you? The game resets, taking him to the main menu, and when Jad opens up the player select, only one file is there, with the words "Your Turn" written in all capitals as its name. I turned the game off at that point. I'm not superstitious, but this is way too fucked up, even for me. I haven't played it at all today. Hell, I didn't even get any sleep last night. I kept hearing the reverse song of healing music in my head and just remembered the sense of dread I felt exploring Clocktown. I drove back to the old man's house today to ask him some questions with a buddy of mine. No way was I going there alone, only to find that there's a for sale sign in the front yard, and when I rang the door, no one was home. So now I'm back here writing down the rest of my thoughts and recording what happened. I'm running on no sleep here. I'm terrified of this game, even more so now that I relived it a second time writing it all down. But I feel like there's still more to it than meets the eye, and there's something calling me to investigate this further. I think Ben is something in this equation, but I don't know what. If I could get a hold of the old man, then maybe I would be able to find some answers. I need another day or so to recuperate before tackling the game again. It's already taken a toll on my sanity. But next time I do this, I'm going to be recording my footage all the way through. The idea to record only came to me towards the end, so you see the last few minutes of what I saw. It's on YouTube, here. Dreams torment Jadizable that night. Last night, that Elegy of Empty Mist statue, I had a dream about it. I dreamed that it was following me in my dream, that I would be minding my own business when I'd feel my neck hair stand up on end. I would turn around and that thing, that horrible, lifeless statue, would be staring with those empty eyes right at me, merely inches away. In my dream, I remember calling it Ben, and never before had I had a dream that I could remember so vividly. But the important thing is, I did get some sleep, I suppose. This is what I was talking about, incidentally. The game is affecting Jadisabul, even when he's not playing it. Something about it is clawing at his psyche. Perhaps something inside it is even toying with him, and it will continue to do so. The following morning, Jad returns to the old man's house, hoping that he might be there, with no luck. As I was walking back to my car, this man next door mowing the grass killed the power to his lawnmower and asked me if I was looking for someone. I told him that I was looking to talk to the old man that lived here, to which he told me what I already knew. He was moving. Trying a different avenue, I asked if the old man had any family or relatives I could talk to. I discovered that this old man had never been married, nor did he have any children or grandchildren through adoption. Starting to become worried, I asked one final question, one that I should have asked from the beginning. Who was Ben? The man's expression turned grim, and I learned that 4 doors down, and around 8 years ago on April 23rd, there was an accident. One with a young boy named Ben in the neighborhood. Shortly afterwards, his parents moved, and despite any further attempts to talk to the man to get more information, he wouldn't divulge anything else. Desperate for answers, Jad boots the game up yet again, leading to the next video, ben.wmv. Jad spawns in the stone temple, with a version of Link with a completely broken back that keeps glitching. He wanders for a few moments before the statue appears yet again. Then there's a scream. And we watch the cutscene that plays after the first cycle resets in the game. Link goes back into the clock tower, where he sees the happy mask salesman, standing where he always does, before the game glitches and teleports him somewhere else. The melancholy funerary dirge that is the Song of Unhealing begins to play as he approaches 3 figures in Termina Field. Epona, Link's horse, the statue, and the happy mask salesman. Desperate, Jad tries to play the Song of Healing, the normal version that you normally play in the game, when this happens. That same fear that caused me to lose sleep 2 days ago started to grip me again as I was met with the text, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" For the third time. Link respawns as Zora, one of the amphibious fish people in the game, near the sea and begins to swim. And there in the depths, waiting for him again, is the statue. And despite him being a Zora, Link drowns. The game resets, and we return to the main menu. Ben drowned. The next post from Jadisable was vague, to say the least. I know it's early in the morning. I've stayed up all night. I can't sleep. I don't care if people see this. That's not the point. I just want the word to get spread so I don't suffer for nothing. The less I dwell on this, the better. I think the video just speaks for itself. I did what you guys told me to. I played the Elegy of Emptiness song at the first prompt by the game I was given, but I think that's what the game, or Ben, Jesus Christ, I can't believe I'm even humoring the absurd idea he exists in the game, wanted me to do. He's following me now. Not just in the game, he's in my dreams. I see him all the time, behind my back, just watching me. I haven't gone to any of my classes. I've stayed in my dorm room with the windows closed and the blinds shut. That way I know he can't watch me, but he still gets me when I play. When I play, he can still see me. The game is scaring me now. It talked to me for the first time. It talked to me for the first time. Not just using text that's already in the game. It spoke to me. It referenced Ben. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it wants. I never wanted this. I just want my old life back. Stuff like this doesn't happen to people like me. I'm just a kid, not even old enough to drink yet. It's not fair. I want to go home. I want to see my parents again. I'm so far away from home here at this school, and I just want to hug my mom again. I just want to forget that statue's horrible blank face. My original game file is back, just the way I left it before it was gone, but I don't want to play it anymore. I feel like something bad will happen if I don't, but that's impossible. It's a video game. Haunted or not, it can't hurt me, right? Seriously, it can't, right? That's what I keep telling myself, but every time I think about it, I'm not so sure. Alongside this post was a third YouTube video titled drowned.wmv. The game opens and a file is selected, though a lot of text seems to be glitched. Link respawns in the Lost Woods in the beginning of the game in the area which leads to the pit that you fall into to reach Termina. He approaches it and, like in the normal game, falls in. The scene where Skull Kid transforms you into a Deco Scrub begins to play like usual, but it's also glitched out. And in addition to that, unlike in the game, Link doesn't transform here. Despite that fact, the scene continues to play out, essentially the same as it usually does. You shouldn't have done that. Link teleports yet again to several locations, this time not just from Majora's Mask, however, but to ones in Ocarina of Time as well. And everywhere he goes, the same text appears, no matter who he talks to or what sign in-game he tries to read. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that.
Watch out!
Ben is getting lonely. Link respawns again, this time in the strange field that you go to when you try and enter the moon in the final moments of the game. But it's completely empty. Usually there are strange children under the tree at the center, but there's no one here but Link. You will be given one last chance. Back to where it all began. Come play with us. End of the third video. The final 4chan post from Jadisable would be uploaded not too long after this. Despite that though, and despite the fact that it was from Jadisable's 4chan account, it wasn't him writing at all. Let me just clear things up. I know you guys are worried about Jadisable and if he's okay. He finished moving out today and he said he's going back home. He's just taking the semester off. I'm really not sure what's happened. I have a vague idea, but you guys probably know more than I do. I'm his roommate, and obviously I knew something was wrong with him for a few days now. He stayed in his room all the time, fell out of contact with literally all of his friends, and I'm pretty sure he hadn't been eating anything. After the second day, I couldn't stay in there anymore, so I've been crashing at a buddy's place, only coming into my room to get stuff that I need. I tried talking to him several times, but he would cut me off or keep the conversation brief when I asked him about his strange behavior. It was like he was convinced something was hunting him. Yesterday, I came to grab my philosophy book, and he approached me looking awful, like horrible bags under his eyes. He handed me a flash drive and gave me specific instructions. He told me that he needs me to do one last favor for him. He finally explained to me what has been going on, gave me the account info to his YouTube account, and he gave me instructions on how to post with his name code on specifically this board. That's logistics of 4chan I don't want to get into. Apparently, he said you guys had been helping him along the way, and you deserve to see the end of it. He told me that he's getting away from here, that it lured him to play it again instead of trying to change things, and he shouldn't have done that, and that I should upload the footage and inform people of what happened. I told him that he could do it himself, and he got this wild look in his eye and told me that he is never looking at that game again, and that's the last thing he said to me. He never even said goodbye when his parents came to pick him up. I was hoping I'd at least get a chance to meet his parents when they picked him up, but they were in and out so quick I never saw them again. I honestly can't tell you what happened. When he spoke, it was kind of hard to understand him, and his fucked up appearance really distracted me. On the flash drive, there was footage of the game last night, a text document with his name and a password for YouTube, and a third document called the truth.txt, containing what he told me were his notes that he'd taken about all of this. He told me that this meant everything to him and that I should follow his instructions exactly. Normally I wouldn't be so to the letter for a request over a fucking video game, but the way he spoke and the way he looked made me know this was really serious. The video I'm releasing tonight. The truth.txt will be released on September 15th, just like he requested. I don't know why he wants to wait for his notes to be published, but after what he's been through, I'll honor that request. I haven't dared peek at it, so the first time I see it will be the first time you see it out of respect to my friend. To answer your questions, no, I haven't tried calling him yet. As for the video, I cut straight to when he loaded the Ben file in the game. Looking back, I realized that Jadisable left the save select screen in because it said different names sometimes, so my bad for that, but all it said this time was the same as at the end of the last video, Link and Ben. Nothing different. I wasn't there when he played it, but it looks to me like in the beginning when he first spawns, he's testing out his equipment or seeing what items he has or something, because apparently they've changed randomly before. He really wanted you guys to see this, and the video starts then. After that, I just think the game got too personal for him. Under this post on 4chan was a link to the next video. It was titled jadisable.wmv and was the penultimate video for the first arc of the story. The game begins and Link spawns in Akana Valley, the final area of the game. While we didn't see what file was selected at the start, the location and number of masks matches the description he gave as to how far the Ben save file appeared to be when he first booted up the game. He mentioned that the Ben save file had gotten all the masks, or nearly all of them, and was at this particular owl statue, which is where you can go to save and fast travel. It's a direct mirror to what Ben's save file was like, and I find that very interesting. The game seems to play normally until we reach one moment which is a bit odd. Link equips the camera and checks what photo is inside. It's one of the Happy Mask salesmen in the statue. Jad deletes this photo, and this is when things seem to go wrong yet again. More glitched text appears, this time during the scene where Link learns the Elegy of Emptiness, the song to summon the statue. Suddenly the game's boss music theme begins to play, and we glitch yet again, teleporting somewhere else. But in the darkness, we get an interesting bit of dialogue.
Why is he smiling? The father.
This text doesn't appear in this game at any point. You may remember where it does, though. It appeared in the first gameplay video that I mentioned at the very start of all this, the one about Vampire the Masquerade. It's something Rosa says. Link spawns in a graveyard and reads the graves. One reads, "A vessel for wandering spirits rests here." The game teleports him yet again to the tunnel which leads into the clock tower, where, yet again, we have the statue. everywhere he goes, Jad is faced with it. It haunts him, causing trouble on occasion, on others just standing there, taunting him with that vacant grin, even if some of his prior posts are anything to go by, in his own dreams. You can't run. One more cryptic clip plays. The statue appears again, this time next to the Happy Mask salesman, much like how they appeared in that photo in the camera at the very start of this video, before suddenly another statue appears to begin to spawn as we fade to the title screen. We get a look at the player select screen yet again, and we now see that there's one file for Ben, and one labeled Matt. What this means is up to interpretation. The day after this video's upload, Jadisable's supposed roommate uploaded the text file titled thetruth.rtf. Interestingly, instead of being a .txt document, it is an RTF document. And inside this document, we learn about a lot of other stuff that was happening to Jad as all of this occurred that he wasn't sharing in his posts online. As such, this document acts as kind of an elaboration on the timeline of events so far, adding in new details and plot points we were not privy to up until now. And unfortunately for me, and my throat, I'm gonna be reading through all of it. Hey guys, Jadisable here. This is my final gift to you. These are the notes that I have taken and the realizations I've made. Before I delve into this, I want to thank you for following me and thank you for listening. It feels like the weight of a powerful burden is about to be lifted. By the time you read this, I won't be around anymore. But after spending 4 days with this maddening game, I have begun to understand what's really at play here, and hopefully after reading this, we can ensure that this never happens again. There are things which I could not share with you while this was going on due to the circumstances to which I'll explain. With Ben blocking any attempt I made to try and release the truth to you, I tried ever so subtly to warn you guys in various ways. Amidst the chaos in my delirium, I devised a barely noticeable pattern in my video. In all 5 videos I recorded over the 4 days, suggesting that there's a video we've missed since there's only 4, I have either had the Mask of Truth interacted with the Gossip Stone, or the Lens of Truth equipped at some point. For you Zelda enthusiasts, these are all symbols of honesty and trustworthiness, and I would hope that one of you may have picked up on the reference. As I played the file, which I would name Ben, in all capitals like the original one that he deleted, being mindful of how Ben was watching over my every move in the game, I made a point to avoid doing anything too obvious. But I sent out a hidden message to you guys. I never equipped the lens, nor the mask, nor visited a stone. It worked and the video was uploaded. I prayed that someone would notice the pattern didn't apply to Ben. The tags followed suit too. I hope you guys paid attention to those as well. Those are referencing the keywords that you put in when you upload a YouTube video. They were my little messages to you. Nothing big enough that would catch Ben's attention or make him suspect anything. With Ben manipulating and changing my files, I honestly hope that what you guys saw was close to what actually happened, but there is no way for me to know. So this is just the start of the document, and there's a lot to parse already. First of all, there's a mention of a video that we have not been able to see, which was completely blocked from the channel. And the rest of this is suggesting that some of the footage we've seen may have been doctored somehow, hence the weird secret code he was trying to share. It also sounds like Ben forced him to start playing in a new save file, one that sounded an awful lot like the one that Jadisable himself originally deleted at the very start. And this is a lot, even just here. It suggests that someone, Ben, whoever that may be, was manipulating everything we've received up to this point, allowing some stuff to be shared and some not. As for the mention of tags, the keywords that I talked about before, let's look at the original ones listed on each of these videos, shall we? Day4.wmv includes a few general words related to Nintendo and Zelda, and then Rosa, Trapped, Ben, and Your Turn. The next video, Ben.wmv, is similar, but the unusual keywords are, This is not me. Drown WMV is next, and has Children of the Moon and Can't Run From This written in the tags. The final video that we've gotten thus far, deducible.wmv, has no weird tags that stick out besides the name Matt being featured, like the name on the save file at the end of the video. There's something strange here. There was more going on than it seemed, it appears. From this point on, the document acts as a series of journal entries, covering Jad's responses to events as they happened, starting not long after he uploaded the very first video. September 6th, the same day the very first video was recorded, goes as such. 11 p.m. Can't believe what happened. Not sure if this is some kind of elaborate hoax. Despite the fear, I can't help but be exceptionally curious about this. Who or what is the statue? Lots of questions here. I'm starting this document as a diary so I can keep track of everything. I'm typing up a summary of what happened so I can come to it later. The next post is from September 7th. This was the day that Jad went to try and find the old man to ask him some questions the first time. 4:23 a.m. Interestingly enough, 4:23 is the date that was Ben's death date, the day that he drowned. It's a number which will come up sporadically throughout the rest of the story, so keep it in mind. I can't sleep. I've been trying so hard, but the harder I try, I just get more restless. I just feel like that statue is appearing whenever I close my eyes. 8:20 a.m. Didn't sleep at all, just going to start my day. I don't think I have the energy to go to class today, though. I'm going to drive back down to try and talk to that old man, taking my buddy Tyler with me just in case. 1:18 p.m. Back home now. No sign of the old man. Really weird that he appears to be moving the next day, but maybe the for sale sign was up there yesterday and I just didn't notice it. Tyler wants to know what's gotten me all worked up. I didn't tell him. Going to eat. Feel like death. 3:46 p.m. Could have sworn driving back from Subway that I saw the LG statue buried in some shrubbery staring at me go by. Now I definitely know I need sleep. 5 p.m. Don't think a lot of people would believe me if I told them about what's happening. I think I'm going to try posting this on the internet. I think I'll just use the summary. These notes are pretty sporadic. 6 p.m. Connected my capture card to my computer to upload the footage. Thought my computer froze for a second. Made this strange popping sound when I hooked everything up. But now it seems to be working fine again. My computer can't die on me now. It can't. 7 p.m. Footage is finished uploading. The quality's a lot better than I thought it would be. Guess this is a really special cartridge. I've never had it come through this clear before. 8:45 p.m. Thought I saw an icon pop up on my desktop that looks like the statue's face for a split second. Gave me quite a scare. Getting really unnerved and delirious. I'm going to crash after this. As I said, the statue has continued to torment him, appearing in his vision even away from the TV, and outside of his dreams as well. He's begun to hallucinate, it seems, after just playing this game for a short while. Keep in mind, this was after he played through it once. Something is very, very wrong here. September 8th is next on the list of entries. 10:48 a.m. I had a dream about the statue. I dreamed that it was following me in my dream, that I would be minding my own business when I'd feel my neck hair stand up on end. I would turn around and that horrible, lifeless statue would be staring at me with those empty eyes, merely inches away. In my dream, I remember calling it Ben. Power of suggestion, most likely. Never before have I had a dream that I could remember so vividly. 11:21 a.m. I really don't want to play this game again. I think I'm going to go back to see if that old man's there instead. 1:35 p.m. No old man, but I had an interesting conversation with his neighbor. I'll post the full thing with my summary of tonight's attempt at playing the game. Going to wait a bit, though, to see if I can't dig up any information on this Ben guy. 2:45 p.m. I've been getting random, inexplicable headaches due to the lack of sleep, and I keep hearing that song in my head. Next up is 3 p.m. There was an entry here, but in the document, it's just blank. Somehow, it seems even this record has been tampered with. 3:02 p.m. My computer just, on its own, opened up a text document and wrote the words hi and www.cleverbot.com by itself. What the fuck? 3:46 p.m. I went to the website. It's one of those bot chatting programs. I think it's best if I just let the conversation speak for itself. So, before we go any further, there's a couple things I want to explain. First of all, and we'll come to see this throughout the story, the creator of Ben Drowned, Alex Hall is his name, is not necessarily the most tight of storytellers. There are holes or inconsistencies or dropped threads littered throughout this tale. And I think that, on the whole, this first arc of the story, the original creepypasta that everyone remembers, is perfect. I think it's a great piece of internet horror. But this bit about Cleverbot is kind of an inconsistency, as I'll explain later on in this section. Second of all, if you're wondering what Cleverbot is, it's kind of an early AI chatbot you could speak to. you still can, in fact. To my understanding, instead of generating its own replies, it just looked for keywords in what you wrote to try and match another existing message that had been sent to it with what you had said to make it seem like it was replying. This led to a rather funny situation, actually, for a few years after the story's release, where people would go to Cleverbot to try and talk to it like it was Ben, thanks to this story, and as such, there were so many Ben drowned messages in Cleverbot's system that it would sometimes just mention it when talking to people who didn't ask about it. So the Cleverbot conversations you're about to see were created by a very close friend of mine who I'll be mentioning again later in the video, who goes by the name Circle Hunter. He painstakingly recreated what Cleverbot looked like at the time of this story's creation. This took him like 9 hours. He did this because on his channel is a community-created adaptation of the Ben Drown story. It just covers the first arc, what I've been covering up to this point. It's got illustrations and music and voices. It's really cool. Give it a look once we're done here. He's working on arc 2 or at least is hoping to, and he just wanted me to call it out explicitly because he wants to keep going and he wants his project to get more attention. It's a really good adaptation of the story, perhaps the greatest way to experience it, and I just want to get the word out there. It deserves more attention. Hello? Hello? Who is this and how are you able to control my computer? Who am I? Oh right, I forgot. You're a bot. Do you really think that? Listen, I know whoever's fucking with my computer can see my screen right now. Yes? And I'll wager that you're one of those IT kids who thinks he's tough shit. You know what you're doing right now is illegal, right? Is it? No shit. Are you familiar with the terms invasion of privacy? Get the fuck off my computer, kid. I am your computer. Cool story. Anyways, I'm calling DPS. You picked a bad time to fuck with me, kid. Should I wait until you play the game, then? What? That game. Majora's Mask? Yes. How did you know about that? Because. Because what? I did it. Did what? I played with you. What the fuck? Were you scared? Who the fuck is this? Ben. The statue? You're inside my computer now? Yes. How? You connected me. How the hell did I connect you? Cables and cords. How? Tell me about yourself. What do you mean? What is it that really scares you? What the fuck? Answer. No! Answer. What the fuck? How the fuck did you just open that by yourself? I'm your computer now. How much can you control? All. What do you want from me? To entertain. You're stuck inside there. You can't hurt me. Ha. Go play. No, you can't hurt me. Took you longer to type that. So? You're not sure. If you're so powerful, why use a ridiculous website like this to chat with me? Less messy, more structured. Fun. Fun? Yes, tradition. I like it. You think this is funny? Amusing. And my notes. You may write them down. Why? Why are you letting me? It is amusing to see what you think of me. 3:50 p.m. What have I done? I've invited it into my computer. I continue to write these notes, write my summaries, but I feel like I'm a prisoner in my one place of security. I don't know. I don't know if I'm hallucinating or not. I feel like I'm fucking insane right now. I can feel it watching over me even as I type this. Ben is controlling everything in the game, toying with me, leading me like a sheep. But for what? What's the purpose? I know Ben drowned, but why these hauntings? What the fuck am I even doing? You can probably even see this right now. 7:18 p.m. Ben called me to Cleverbot again. He tells me that he's sorry and wants to be free, and that I can free him. That just like how he got on my computer from the capture card, he can spread, but he needs my help. He says I'm special because I can help him. This is the first nice thing he has said. He promises to leave me alone if I do it. He swears he will. I don't know what to think right now. How can I even trust this thing? 7:20 p.m. I'm terrified of it, but now it's saying that it was just having fun. It's twisted and fucked up version of fun, I suppose. He's saying that the game is over, and I do want it to be over. He says that he just wants to be free, that he's trapped in the cartridge in my computer, and he wants to be freed. I don't want to have to deal with this shit. I don't know how long I can deal with the watching. It's watching my every move, every keystroke. I have nothing private anymore. It knows everything that's been on my computer. It tells me that if it wanted to, it could do horrible things to me, but it hasn't. So I should trust it. 8:01 p.m. Something tells me that I'm being played again, just like in the game. 9:29. Ben called me to Cleverbot again. I ignored it and went to take a shower. When I came back to my laptop, I was welcomed with an image of the LG statue staring at me with those dead eyes. I don't want to talk to him. 10:45 p.m. It's more than half an hour and the messages have stopped. Ben has stopped. I'm beginning to think that Ben isn't confined to just my computer or cartridge. I'm beginning to feel something. It's hard to explain it. I've never been spiritual, but there's something different about the air in my dorm room now. 11:42 p.m. I'm beginning to see the LG statue randomly as I search the internet in places I shouldn't see it. Places where he shouldn't be. I'd be scrolling down and suddenly I'd be staring at a picture of the LG statue. Always the LG statue. I don't know how much more of this I can take. September 9th, 2010, 12:35 a.m. My worst fears confirmed. Ben has tampered with my summary of ben.wmv. I looked at the summary that I posted on various forums for the ben.wmv file, and parts have been omitted. There's no mention of Ben existing outside the game. There's no mention of the Moon Children. How could he have been that quick to delete the post without me noticing? I'm wondering if maybe it appeared to me that I was posting everything, but in reality, Ben was posting his own censored version. I'm going to ask Ben why he did it. Now, this is interesting. What are the Moon Children? We've not heard about this before. I did mention some children who live on the field that exists inside the moon in Majora's Mask before. Maybe it's referring to that? Who can say? Unfortunately, though, Jad's luck does not improve that night, because he has a nightmare. 10:43 a.m. The Moon Children appeared in my dreams last night. They lifted up their masks to reveal their hideously disfigured faces, maggots crawling out of their orifices, sunken black holes where their eyes should be, a yellow smile that slowly grew bigger and bigger as they came closer to me. They told me that they wanted to play. I tried to run from them, but the 4 children pinned me down to the ground with surprising strength. I think this is actually the Moon Children from the game that he's describing. Over them stood the happy mask salesman, announcing that he had a new mask that he wanted me to try. In his spastic, sudden movements matching his in-game appearance, he took out a mask model off of someone's face that I couldn't recognize, a younger-looking face, and handed it to the Moon Children. Giggling, they lashed it to my face, their horrible, broken bodies bouncing up and down. 2 of them held me down while the other 2 began to sew the mask onto my face. My shrieks and screams caused the happy mask salesman's face to turn into the most horrific smile I had ever seen. He sporadically moved around, examining this procedure like a precarious doctor, in that impossible movement of his. I flailed around, but it was no use. My eyes rolled in the back of my head because of the pain. It felt so real, but I couldn't wake up. I couldn't wake up no matter how hard I tried. I couldn't wake up. After the mask was melted onto my flesh, they began sewing my legs together, then my arms, the horrific feeling of a needle puncturing your legs and pulling them in, rupturing your Achilles tendons and tying them together resonated throughout my entire body. I tried to scream, but the mask was pressed so tightly against my face that it was my new face, and my new face had no mouth. I didn't make a sound. I tried telling myself in my head that I was dreaming, and tried telling myself this again and again, and suddenly the moon children stopped and looked at me, and they just stared. The happy mask salesman slowly bent down and stared at me, inches away from my face. He grinned and simply said, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" Before the moon children resumed with increased vigor. I couldn't wake up. I couldn't wake up. It wouldn't let me wake up until they had crafted me into another elegy statue. I woke up sweating, crying, and shaking uncontrollably. I immediately ran to my computer and went for Ben. "Answer me, Ben." "Welcome back. What is the point of doing this? Why?" "Amusing to see." "How?" "Fun to play. Fun to toy with you. Make you feel safe. ... I wonder how you would have reacted." "To what?" "If I hadn't revealed myself and stayed hidden, only doing little things to play with you. Close out your windows, turn off your computer, move your mouse by itself. Little things. Make you wonder if I am there, but you'd never know. Give you little hints that I am. I wanted to do something different with you, though." "You did this before." "Yes, and I will do it again." "To who? Ben?" Did you know Ben?" "Won't tell you that information." "How did Ben die?" "You know." "No, but how did he drown?" "Won't tell that to you." "Why?" "It is reserved for another." "Who?" "Another who asks." "When?" "Later." Incidentally, I think the conversations between Jadisable and Ben are frankly scarier than the videos. Entries from Jad continue late into the night in this document as his mental state continues to deteriorate. 1:41 p.m. I'm going insane trying to decide what is real and what isn't. Is Ben just playing a trick on me, or is this for real? Is Ben generating these replies, or are people actually posting them? Did I just see that screen flicker, or was it my imagination? Imagine depending on the internet and trusting your eyes for your entire life and then being blinded. You can't rely on it anymore. You second-guess everything. For the brief moments I am looking at my responses to the videos, people were pointing out things that looked faked or photoshopped or whatever, and there's literally no way for me to know if Ben changed something on purpose to try and shut me up, or maybe if those replies were just constructed by him to try and discourage me from even reaching out. You see, I get fucking caught in an infinite mindfuck loop like this, and this is what has been wearing on my sanity and pushing me to the edge. As I'm writing this, there's no way of even telling if anyone even cares as much as I think they do. Could be just another fucking trick. Is this whole document even real? Am I writing nothing? He's completely lost his sanity at this point. He attempts to play the game again despite this, as he thinks that's what Ben wants, but he keeps running into more issues. What is it? What's the point of playing? I die whenever I do. You die because you can't figure out the secret. What? Thematic. What the fuck are you talking about? There is beauty in your suffering. 4:09 p.m. Ben is making me play the game again. It tells me that it has something very important to show me. The following entry in this list is another odd one. It reads as such. 9:09. Summary of Children.wmv playthrough. Hang on a moment. What on earth is Children.wmv? No video we've seen up to this point has had that title. It turns out there was apparently another video of Jad's that he wanted to upload that didn't make it at all due to Ben's actions, and the summary of it has been redacted from this document as well. The strangest thing, though, is that according to the following entry after this, Jad may not even remember this video either. September 10th, 11:52 a.m. The drown.wmv playthrough was up when I woke up today. I remember typing it up, but I don't ever remember posting it. He censored it again. There's no mentioning of the old man. I have no voice anymore. I am only posting what he wants me to. I am the mask he uses to disguise himself as he lies. 11:55 a.m. There's an entire video summary of a video that I don't remember doing. Reading through the summary, this sounds morbid, resembling my dream from 2 nights ago, except on a far more sadistic scale. These moon children, there's something more to them, almost as if they're another entity from Ben. Something happened last night that I can't remember. I'm posting the 4th summary to the forums now. Shadow of my chair moved. 12 p.m. Ben won't let me visit YouTube. I can browse the rest of the sites, but he keeps on exiting the window when I go to YouTube. Why? 2:02 p.m. I'm feeling the air start to constrict. I don't think I'm alone here. Whatever aura has been here is getting more violent. 2:44 p.m. I'm trying to contact Ben on Cleverbot, and he's not responding. I just get the normal AI. 3:51 p.m. My ears aren't fooling me. I'm hearing the reverse song of healing. I keep hearing it. And then there's a line in the document, just like a normal straight line. And then a little more from Jad. This is him writing more from after he took all these notes. That's where my notes end. I fled my room, taking the cartridge with me. I don't want to go into details of what happened. I'll lose my train of thought as I hammer out these last details. It's been roughly 2 days since then. This is my last summary in service to you of the final video you guys saw. Matt.wmv. Interesting, because that's not the name of the final video. It wasn't. The last video entry I made, Matt.wmv, began as normal. I was spawned in Clocktown as usual and nothing seemed to be out of place. Determined to set things right and play the Oath to Order on top of the Clower on the 4th day, I prepared myself. I sped up time and got to the final day, making my way to the observatory. As I got up to the telescope room and approached the astronomer, he would not let me look into his telescope. He told me that it would be cheating and that I should follow the rules. Despite my repeated efforts, the game would not let me do the 4th day glitch no matter how hard I tried. I tried working around the game and doing the glitch, but it was adamant this time. Regardless of if I simply had the illusion of free will in prior games, this time the game became more aggressive than anything I've ever seen. It eventually told me to go to Ikana Valley, where the game would end and it would stop haunting me. Anxious and desperate to end this nightmare, I played the Song of Soaring and ended up there. I was told to check my inventory. This, incidentally, seems to be where the final video that we saw began. So all that other stuff was not included, interestingly enough. I was told to check my inventory, that I would find the answers there to end the game. I arrived at the valley and saved my progress at the owl statue. As I searched through my inventory, I finally noticed that I was missing a reoccurring song, the Elegy of Emptiness. Obviously, once I traveled there and learned the song, I suppose that was the last thing it needed before Ben decided it had had enough fun playing with me. Ben is a manipulator. He tries to fool his victims into security and makes you drop your guard like a Venus flytrap. He ensnares them. I'm nothing but a puppet to him. He enjoys seeing what kind of human emotions he can tap into by doing different things. There are still some things about this whole experience that I still don't understand. But then again, I was never good at figuring out these things, and I'm not exactly in the right state of mind to. I'm giving you all the pieces of the puzzle for you to analyze and piece together through the missing links. I'm typing these closing thoughts on the library computer on campus, and I've emailed myself the notes I have stored on my infected computer from the last 4 days. I'm then going to combine this and those notes with the closing and openings that I've typed here on the safe public computer into one text document. I'm not taking any chances spreading Ben. I would not wish this horrible torment on anyone, and I've made sure to have my bases covered here. I didn't run into any problems with Ben when I was back on my computer trying to email myself the notes. Went right under his fucking nose. He has no idea what he just let me do. I had no problems opening the text document from my infected computer in my email either. I can't describe to you how it feels to finally be able to get the word out in this post. The nightmare ends here. With that said, do not download any of my videos or anything about my videos through a YouTube video, audio ripper, a screen grab, whatever. I don't know how we can spread, but I know that just watching them on YouTube or reading my text won't be able to allow him to spread. Otherwise, he wouldn't have needed my help in the first place. But I strongly recommend you do not take anything you see streaming online onto your own personal computer. This will be my last posting. I'm putting this up on the forum here for the world. If you see any further posts from me after today's current date, September 12th, and after the current time, 12:08 a.m., discredit them. It has already been proven to me that Ben can access my account and password and manipulate my computer. And like I said, I have no idea to what extent it can do this, but I know that it will do anything to break free. He is desperate. To ensure your safety, just forget about me. Please. And obviously this goes without saying, but from here on out, do not download any images that I may have put up, any files, anything. This 5th day will be my last day. I'm going to burn the cartridge, then come back to destroy my laptop. Even though I don't even know any of you, this is sort of bittersweet for me. This semester I didn't really have any friends, or rather, I stopped paying attention to them. But I suppose that's partially to blame because I'm the genius who picked to live in a single. I suppose someone being there to get a hold of me and to save me before I got too immersed in this game would have literally saved my life. However, it proved too much for me. I'm just glad it happened to me and I could get the warning out so that Ben dies here. Lastly, thank you for taking the time to open this and open yourselves up to me by hearing my story. Despite maybe not believing me, you didn't have to do that. You really shouldn't have. Your support this entire time has kept me going, and now I'm finally free of this. Thanks again, Jadisable. So, where do we begin? It seems that there was a lot more going on than we first thought, and only so much of it were we allowed to see up to this point. Ben had been tormenting Jad throughout this entire ordeal without anyone online knowing about it, until now, when it was far too late. For one thing, as I've already mentioned, the document clearly has been tampered with. There are 2 sections where descriptions are missing. And in addition to that, throughout the document as well were 3 randomly capitalized letters. An L, an I, and an E in that order. Lie. We can't trust what's been said in here. It's entirely possible that Ben has manipulated it. And we know that for a fact, actually, because when this document was uploaded, it was posted by his roommate. But according to Jad himself, he didn't have a roommate. So whoever was posting under his name wasn't Jad. It was probably Ben. And why did Ben post under Jad's name? Probably so people would download this text file. We don't know what happened to Jad after this point, but we can only assume it was something terrible. Unfortunately, though, there's no way of telling because even this may not be the full story. The truth.rtf may not be correct. And now Ben is free. If you're wondering how, well, let's read the final lines of the document again. He said, and I quote, "Do not download any of my videos or anything about my videos," and that would include this document. And unfortunately, this warning that he wrote out was written in a document that could only be accessed by downloading it onto your computer. And so by the time the people who downloaded it got the message, it was far too late for them or for Jadisable. What happened to him, as I've already said, we can't say. Perhaps he got trapped on the cartridge, hence the name Matt being listed at the end of the penultimate video. But that's only speculation. It doesn't quite follow with what we're going to see later down in the line in the ARG, but at this point I don't think that the writer of it had it planned out, so I think that maybe was kind of his intention. In any case, about 100 minutes after the truth.rtf was made available to the public, a new video was uploaded to Jadisable's channel titled free.wmv. The counter resets. I'm glad you did that. So I've already alluded to it a few times already, but by downloading these videos, Ben was spread. Whatever he, or it, was, it had made it off of Jad's computer and is now free to roam the internet, to do as he pleases, to torment whoever he wants. As for what he was, we can't say. Jad speculated that he maybe wasn't the boy who died at all, maybe just some sort of malicious entity who stole his name as a trophy, after parading it around as his own, a parody of the boy who died at his hands. Much in the way he takes the form of the avatar of the game this boy played, he makes a mockery of him, a twisted facsimile with no humanity whatsoever. And now, whatever this thing is, it's everywhere. Wherever anyone goes online, he could be lurking. A dark final note to end this creepypasta on. So we have a lot to cover already, even after just discussing the creepypasta so far. First off, if you're wondering what inconsistency I alluded to earlier was, the one that I mentioned after Ben started talking to Jad through Cleverbot, it's this one small thing that I think is kind of a problem. And it's specifically that Ben started talking to Jad through Cleverbot. The entire ending of the story only works if we accept that Ben cannot access the internet, at least not fully, at least no further than being able to use the interface on Jad's computer. That's why when people downloaded the Truth RTF, he was able to piggyback off of it, off of Jad's computer, onto the World Wide Web. But if he can control Cleverbot, that means that he didn't need to do that, did he? Also, on the whole, a lot of the behavior Ben himself exhibits isn't entirely going to make sense by the end of the story. And to be clear, when I say Ben here, I'm referring to the entity, not the boy who he killed. But with that said, though, I don't think the creator had decided to take the story in the direction he did when he first wrote this. I think his plans changed when he decided to wrap up the story, and so there's some inconsistencies here, as I've already mentioned a few times. As such, since these intentions probably weren't in his head when he was writing up this first arc, I'm going to ignore future information as I analyze this part of the story. We'll get to the changes he makes much later on into this video, and I'll explain what I feel the contradictions are, but for now, let's focus on what we've just discussed right now without referring to any other material in the story. I think, looking at this now, that it can be a bit hard to understand why this was so frightening. And to be fair, I found some old forum posts the other day from people saying that they didn't find it that scary, but also some from people who said that they did find it scary. You have to remember, though, that creepypastas were relatively young at the time, and this had video of hauntings occurring in-game, something no other creepypasta had up to this point, as far as I know. In today's modern world, where we've had groundbreaking web series like Petscop, it may be hard to fully appreciate how much having gameplay added to the experience. So many other creepypastas just included like some very obviously doctored screenshots or no images from the game at all. This, however, included not just images from the game, but full-on footage. We can, as a result, to some extent, experience the unnerving and haunted version of Majora's Mask that Jadisable is describing to us as the story goes on. And Majora's Mask already has some pretty intense creepy vibes to it, which makes it a good fit for this sort of treatment as well. The statue in the game is already a little off-putting, as is, for example, the Happy Mask Salesman. And this off-puttingness is turned into outright terror throughout the story. I think, in general, the way this story plays with the imagery of the game as a whole is really clever. For example, since the Elegy of Emptiness statue always spawns where Link is standing, it can easily give off the impression that it's following him wherever Jad goes with just using a simple hack of the game's code. It just appears and disappears, and then reappears again, always right where Link last was standing. Text and sound from the game is also similarly used to a great extent. Dialogue from characters like, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" or descriptive text from the game like, "The vessel that can hold spirits rests here," seem to take on new meanings in the new context that they're presented in during this story. And the Skull Kid's scream, whilst a bit off-putting in the original game, becomes, through sheer repetition, a banshee's wail of terror, an otherworldly cry signifying something we as the audience do not know, nor can we understand. I've already talked about this as well, but another reason I think the story is frankly more successful than a lot of its contemporaries is that it's doing a hell of a lot more than just making up some freaky imagery. So many, like, creepypasta stories are like, "I bought a copy of Putt Putt Saves the Zoo at a yard sale, and then when I opened it up, Putt Putt had red eyes. Ooh," and then that's literally it. This has a lot more going on than just that. Other video game creepypastas may be about the narrator playing a game that they find distressing, but at the end of the day, they can just put it down. Ben Drowned, on the other hand, goes much further. The game itself seems to deeply influence Jadisable. He speaks about hallucinations, about questioning his own reality. Like a man who reads from the Necronomicon in Lovecraft, the contents of the game seem to drive him mad. It's as if he's brushed against some huge eldritch horror that somehow ended up within the confines of the game's code. The level of questions that are left unanswered is also a big part of what makes the story feel so compelling. A lot of stuff happens as Jadisable plays the game, and it feels like it's trying to convey messages to us, that something more is going on, which we're not fully getting. Sometimes these messages are spelled out for us, like when it tells us that Ben drowned, but on the whole, that's a rarity. For example, I think it's interesting that in the last video, Jad spawns in his final gameplay video inside Akana Valley, mirroring where Ben, the child who had owned this game before he did, had reached in his own save file. Perhaps this means something, perhaps it doesn't. Perhaps in some way the entity on the cartridge wanted him to recreate the file that the last kid actually had done and to actually have him complete the game. Or perhaps not. It's up to your interpretation. If you ask me, he just made Jad play through the game again and had him try and follow Ben's footsteps as closely as he feasibly could, a form of sort of ironic symbolism to make his newest victim to go through the same actions of his last before he takes him. Another thing that's not explained well is the ending. Not the ending of the truth.rtf, but the ending of the penultimate video, which appears to be the final piece of gameplay that Jad recorded. With the Elegy of Emptiness statue being summoned and then a new name appearing in the game's menu, I think it's easy to read this as the game having finally consumed Jadisable. Maybe Jadisable's name was Matt. I mean, in real life, the creator's name is not Matt, but maybe this character he's created was initially intended to be Matt. Whilst a lot of stuff got explained as the story was completed, if you wanted the proper interpretation at the time, theorizing and speculation was all you had to rely on. The story at this point presented a lot of odd occurrences and didn't do much to connect them together for the audience. We have to pull things together and come to our own conclusions. Not just about some hidden message that may or may not be in the game either. A lot of other details are left open to our interpretation. For example, what did those final moments with the statue appearing again and the name Matt coming up in the files mean? And while I could spend like an hour here pointing to every single detail that wasn't explained to this point, there are some things that we can extrapolate and theorize about with the information we currently have to give us some idea of what's been going on. For starters, I want to talk about another video on Jad's channel. I mentioned at the very start of this that there were 2 videos connected to the ARG up to this point, and only talked about one of them. I talked about the Vampire the Masquerade one. The second video I'm going to talk about here because I think it's more appropriate, and this time it's entitled Prototype, All Consume Kills. It's once again yet another gameplay video. This is a gameplay compilation specifically from the game and its title, Prototype. In the game, the player character, who is named Alex, has the ability to completely consume regular humans, reducing them to nothing and taking in their very essence as food or sustenance. And interestingly, the tags on this video changed after the release of the second Majora's Mask video. After they changed, they included the words, "Drown me next," suggesting that this video somehow had some sort of connection to the story. And this is where we can start to speculate. Something about this video relates to what just happened to Jad. And I think it's pretty straightforward, actually. We have no sign of a child's ghost anywhere on the cartridge, but there seems to be some sort of monster on there instead. It's calling itself Ben, but this is not how a child acts. Perhaps, like this child Ben before, Jad was consumed by whatever this thing is. Ben, the entity, is represented by the Elegy of Emptiness statue, and during his playthrough he once discovers the statue in a grave labeled as a vessel to contain wandering spirits. This would also explain the ending of the final video, during which one statue seems to watch while another appears, taking the place of the player's avatar. If the Elegy of Emptiness statue contains wandering spirits, then perhaps Jadisable himself has just been contained or consumed, as occurred in the Prototype video. That would also potentially explain why the name Matt appeared in the list of game files at the very end alongside the name Ben. Another victim has been claimed, and so another name has been taken. It's worth noting that there's going to be another character named Matt later in this story, so this may not be the case, but as I said, we are just talking about what we have seen so far exclusively, and I think ignoring future revelations, that's the most likely explanation for what's happened here. However, like everything else left in the story, this is also left vague. It's the only mystery that we can potentially solve at this point by, connecting some dots, but it's far from the only mystery presented to us. Take, for example, the nature of Ben himself. Jad speculates that whatever this thing might be, it may not be the child who died at all. He's not positive. He's just got as much information as we do, but that opens up a whole new set of questions. What is this thing? Where did it come from? How did it end up inside a video game? Did the old man who gave Jadisable the cartridge know that there was this thing on there? What about the Happy Mask salesman? He appears in several jump scares in the video and stands alongside Ben in the final moments of the penultimate video. He doesn't seem to be Ben himself. Ben seems to exclusively use the Elegy of Emptiness statue, so he is something else, probably, right? And that's just some of the questions we can ask. What are the moon children that Jad mentioned in the truth.rtf? He says he thinks that there's something separate from Ben. What did he mean by that? What about the summaries that were clearly tampered with or just completely censored? What was Ben hiding? A lot of horror manages to succeed at scaring its audience with a fear of the unknown. It's why the original Blair Witch Project, despite it being kind of dull by today's modern standards, was very successful. Stuff just kind of happened. And it was so immersive to watch because it was found footage and people hadn't really seen that up to this point that it was terrifying. People watching didn't know what the hell those weird stick totems the characters found hanging in the woods meant, or what the witch did with them, or anything else for that matter. Thinking on it, actually, the Blair Witch Project is a really good comparison for this, since it also helped popularize a lot of tropes in a specific subgenre of horror that now feel done to death. Though, in that case, it was found footage instead of, haunted video games, but I digress. The point is we don't know what this thing is. Whatever Ben is, and I'm going to keep calling it Ben since we don't have another name for it. It's clearly not the kid. It's malicious and sadistic. It seems to want to have Jad finish the game, but it's unclear if it's just tormenting him or if it's just having him do it for its own amusement or for some greater reason. All we know for certain is that this thing is dangerous and a seemingly supernatural threat to not just our narrator, but anyone else who may encounter it. In addition to all this, another thing that I think the story does really well is that it takes full advantage of the idea that someone on the internet can easily hide or manipulate the truth for their audience and can get away with it. The unreliable narrator aspect of the story is another thing which sets it apart from other creepypastas. Maybe not necessarily from other kinds of horror in general, but certainly from other internet horror of the time. One story that came to mind while reading through this for the video for the first time in years was the book House of Leaves. It's a book which, if you're a fan of internet horror in general, I really suggest you read, since it was deeply influential on a lot of early creators like the people who made Everyman Hybrid, and it continues to have influence on things like the Backrooms to this day. I have no clue if the creator of this story is a fan of it, but it wouldn't surprise me. In that book, we also have a narrator presenting a strange piece of media he's discovered that seems to have an odd effect on him. But that narrator is established by his own admittance in the text to be a pathological liar, so we cannot trust anything he writes about the supposed story he's discovered or its effects on him. Unlike House of Leaves, this unreliability isn't established until the very end as a twist. I'm not saying that Ben Drowned is better as a result of that. It's not, but few things are as brilliant as House of Leaves, so that's only fair. I am saying, though, that its use of the unreliable narrator is different. It's acting as kind of a reveal, which is used to expand upon the story's horror. By the end, you're left not being quite sure what just happened, because there's no good way to know for certain what, quote-unquote, really happened, since the text you're engaging with has been clearly tampered with. That adds to the lack of knowing and to the horror. That horror really doesn't come into full play in the story until the very end, partially due to this clear sign of things being manipulated, but also because of the entry shared in the truth.rtf. I already mentioned that I think that a lot of the conversations between Jad and Ben are scarier than the videos, and yeah, I stand by that. I think that everything in the document expands on what we had before this point, but while doing so, it also complicates what we have, suggesting that even this is a lie. And while we do get a better picture of what's happened to Jad, we also have to contend with the fact that we are not just unable to help him in his predicament, we have aided his tormentor by downloading the document itself and releasing him online. It's a great use of cruel irony. The very thing that tells us not to release the entity is the thing which ends up doing so, and by the time everyone finds out, it's far too late. I feel like perhaps in general, Alex Hall wrote a story with a lot more depth than he planned. I think everything I've praised up to this point was to some extent intended. But with that said, I find the frame story of him finding this cartridge and all the stuff that happens to Jad really interesting and filled with a lot of unintentional symbolism as well. This is a story about a young college student who buys a Nintendo 64 in an attempt to play old games from his childhood. The literal second sentence of his first entry he made onto 4chan acknowledges this. He ends up getting the very game he was secretly hoping for, by doing so, Majora's Mask, but things go very wrong from the beginning. He ends up being taunted by what he at first thinks is the ghost of a child who also played this game once. A child who'd probably have been his age right now if he hadn't died as a very young boy. And at least at this point in the narrative, Jad thinks that this boy is seemingly trapped forever in the cartridge they both loved playing as young boys, perpetually the same as he once was, as ghosts are wont to be. The taunting from the entity on the cartridge leads to feelings of alienation, lack of sleep, even paranoia, Jad is living alone in a dorm room and he feels absolute terror. He says in the truth.rtf that he feels like he's just a kid. This is a story about someone who has just set out to live on his own for the first time, who is beginning to live as an adult, who ends up returning to something of comfort from an easier time for him, from childhood. And it's about how that thing is unable to give him comfort, and instead confronts him with a grotesque parody of a dead child who never got to grow up at all. It's about how he feels scared and isolated and even paranoid, all while being unable to sleep. And I think that those symptoms that he experiences are interesting, because those are all symptoms of something that happens in real life, namely depression, as well as other mental illnesses too, but to me, that is the one which stood most obviously out. These are the symptoms of someone who is experiencing intense depression after moving away from home for the first time. The story, as a result, feels like an unintended metaphor for depression as a result. He's alone, he's isolating, he can't sleep. I think that's part of what makes this story unique. Unlike a lot of other creepypastas of the time, it's about something a bit bigger than Mario with blood eyes say boo to the audience. And if you think this is a stretch, and that I'm maybe making connections that weren't there, and there's no way that this silly ghost story was intended to be a metaphor for depression, well, it probably wasn't deliberate. But I will say that the word depression is used multiple times in the story to describe Jad's personal mental state. I found 3 specifically, and I shall show you the context on screen now, and let you come to your own conclusions. There you have it. Our main character literally said he's depressed, entirely due to the game's supernatural influence perhaps, but depressed nonetheless. And I bring all this up because this story, whether intentionally or not, is about depression first and foremost, as well as nostalgia and a longing for childhood and a failure to recapture it. All these ideas, while not fully articulated, are there in the text. Whilst this was definitely not intentional, as I've already said a couple times, the bones of this interpretation are there, and I think add a lot to the story, intentionally or not, elevating it to feeling like it's a bit more in dialogue with broader ideas and themes than most creepypastas at the time really were. Like, I can't speak for others, but certainly during some of my own worst depressive episodes, I often looked like what Jad was doing throughout a lot of this story. Isolating, trying to take part in some form of childhood media to distract myself and numb the pain. Being an adult can be paralyzing. Trying to go back to your childhood to ignore it, though, can be maladaptive. It can even be dangerous, as it ended up being for Jadisable here. For all these reasons, I think the Haunted Cartridge arc is brilliant. There's a reason why this story, unlike others, has withstood the test of time, and why Ben himself has become such a pillar of the creepypasta expanded universe. But that's not where the story ends at all. No, not in the slightest, as I've already said. It's only just beginning, and the audience it was gathering up to this point was about to become a lot more involved in the narrative, as not just distant viewers, but active participants. They were about to encounter even more questions about Ben, his origins, and what exactly was going on inside that strange, cursed video game that drove its player mad. Hello everybody, as you can see, I have moved. I'm in London now. I keep mentioning this in videos. I will stop after this one, I promise. So, what we just talked about was the Ben Drowned story most people remember. And also for most people, this is where it ends. Jad has disappeared, and Ben is free to roam the internet to cause whatever chaos he wishes. It does stand on its own. You don't necessarily need the stuff that comes after, and I think that's part of why it's the only part that's remembered. But there is so much more. But the thing is, a lot of the activity moving forward didn't necessarily involve videos being uploaded to the Jadusable YouTube channel. As a result of this, for a long time, unless someone actively went looking in depth into the topic of Ben Drowned, they'd just have the videos on his channel to go off of, and as such, as you can imagine, people who didn't do a ton of digging, which was most people, just ended up thinking that's all there was. The rest of the story, however, the stuff that is less known, is the reason why I wanted to make this video. Whilst the Haunted Cartridge arc is brilliant, and frankly deserves more credit than I think it gets these days, this next arc took the unanswered questions from it and began to expand on them, introducing yet even more questions in the process. Now, as I said, researching things past the first arc can become a bit difficult for anyone who's curious and wants to do so. And that brings me to a topic which I feel the need to speak about before I continue my recap. Specifically, I want to speak about the archival efforts of the community around this to maintain the story. A wiki, the Jadisable wiki, began being written up soon after it became clear that all of this was going to become an ARG. However, the wiki wasn't properly maintained, and as the years went on, people began to deface its pages with jokes, and with no mods or admins involved, it quickly became kind of a shit show. As a result of this, it ended up taking the efforts of mainly one very devoted person to rebuild the wiki, to find the missing links and screenshots, and to rebuild it all after a lot of information was lost. That person goes by the name Circle Hunter, who I've already mentioned in the past. Now, anyone who has done a video recapping this topic in the last 9 years has had to rely on the hard work of Circle Hunter. And I know this for a fact because Circle Hunter is actually a friend of mine. Circle Hunter, I am sure you're watching, and I just wanted to take a moment to just pause and appreciate and applaud the work you've done. You've done a really good job. And if you're watching, I really appreciate ya. Also, say hi to everyone. Seriously though, guys, round of applause for him. I've known him for years, longer than I've known any actual IRL friend of mine at this point, and his hard work and diligence is what has made this video possible. Circle Hunter even ended up rebuilding the wiki a second time after spending years fixing pages and expanding them. This was after he decided that fandom had become a horrible home for wikis and that he thought it would be best if he just went independent, and the Jadisable wiki has. So I bring all this up for a couple reasons. First of all, because Circle Hunter deserves recognition for his work. The entire community and videos like this, as I've just said, could not exist without him. And second of all, in relation to that, I want to give him some credit and attention because a lot of other people who have talked about this subject, including one creator who I'm not going to mention by name because some of his videos have millions of views and I don't want to get doxxed, didn't properly cite him despite the wiki being the only source of information. Shit like this bothers me, okay? A friend of mine's work was taken advantage of and credit was not given, not only in that aforementioned case, but in others as well. And I think it's really important when archival work is done by basically a single individual to give that individual the credit they deserve. He's not too happy about this either. He's talked to me about this, which is one of the reasons why I'm making a big stink about it. My final reason for talking about Circle Hunter and the archival work is because I want to stress the importance of archiving stuff like this, especially when it comes to ARGs. I've come across other ARGs in recent years which have had next to no attempts to archive stuff whatsoever. The Welcome Home ARG is one example. There are videos talking about updates whenever they happen, but there's no singular, easily searchable source of information. Last I checked, the Welcome Home wiki is horribly outdated, although maybe it's been updated since then. I bring this up because a lot of the work Circle Hunter has managed to maintain or build back up for the Ben Drown story is because players at the time did the work. They saved stuff. And it worries me when I see stories, especially stories which are ephemeral like ARGs are, not being given that same sort of treatment. Anyhow, just say thank you to Circle Hunter in the comments below. He'll love it. He deserves it. Everything going forward in this video wouldn't be possible without his long effort to keep it all alive. And now, let us begin. 2 days passed after the release of free.wmv, after which some changes started appearing on Jadisable's channel, specifically in the recent activity section. So for those of you who are unaware, and I have to admit I didn't remember this, even though I was super into using YouTube even as a kid, the recent activity section on a person's channel was a part of YouTube back in 2010, 2011, which sort of acted like the community posts that YouTube ended up introducing in 2016. On there, you could share videos with your subscribers from other channels. They could see any videos that you personally recently liked, and you could also post messages to them as well. The messages shared on this channel, though, at this time were very weird, to say the least. The first one reading like this. Well, that was weird. It's almost like it's code or something. People began trying to solve it, comparing notes and running it through deciphering software, and soon its true meaning was revealed. We all wear a mask sometimes. Keep your eyes peeled. Mother, I wonder what it is you whisper for dusk tonight. This was followed by several more ciphers which were translated as such. .net. Think. .net is your only clue. And then there was one final cipher which decoded into the URL for a website. The website in question was an old forum where people went to ask for tech advice, and one of the replies to the OP's query on the forum stood out to players immediately. You shouldn't have done that. msworks.dl is not part of the .net framework. Each version of the framework creates a new directory. Now, we have seen the phrase, "you shouldn't have done that" before, as I'm sure you remember. And quickly putting two and two together, players, for that is what they were now, discovered you shouldn't have done that.net, a completely new website which they began to explore. The banner at the top declared that this site belonged to the Moon Children, and it welcomed us home at the top. A website for those who believe we are Luna's children. This is a website for those who have formed a spiritual connection with the moon and him. Moon and him are capitalized. And recognize that we have been selected to perform miracles and bring enlightenment into this world. She has chosen us, and only us, to survive the upcoming apocalypse because we have honored her and devoted ourselves to her. As we work to enforce her will, we grow together as a family and serve the greater good. We are the Moon's children. If you have found your way here, it is not by chance. You are at home here. You belong here with us. And while you may be caught off guard, I think right now you can feel something inside you agreeing with me. Listen now to your soul. Get in touch with yourself, for your soul knows this, and we can show you how. All the Moon's children have been gifted spiritually, and thus we are more astrally attuned to things normal humans may not be. A normal human's chi energy is typically so small that they may not notice it their entire life, whereas we can perform miracles and ascend our fleshy prisons with ours. If you are visiting, you have come here for a reason, even if that reason may not be known to you. You have been chosen by her. You have this amazing chi potential, this amazing spirit energy locked within you. We can help you unlock it. We can help you become enlightened, capitalized again. Please take a look around our new site and get to know some of our members, and contact us on the About page. We will set up a meeting that will change the rest of your life. The homepage also featured a guest book where people could comment, and above that was an update board where moderators and administrators could post. Let's start by looking at the update board first. The oldest post on it was by a guy named Ifrit, shared about 3 days before the discovery of the site. Welcome to the new site. Luna Shine, brothers and sisters. We now have a new home. It's going to be a busy couple of days trying to put together everything, and while we're doing that, the forums will most likely be down. Feel free to use the guest book below to talk to each other. If the guest book isn't your thing, there's always the IRC chat if you know it. We're looking at maybe a week or so before we're all done with the website. But for now, just sit back and relax and let us do all the hard work. Okay, so in case it wasn't clear yet, this is a website for a cult that seemingly worships the moon. We learn a bit more about their practices, and another post by another member on the update board by a mod, this time named Neko. Hey guys, it's Chris. So glad to be finally back with my true family. I hope you're as eager as I am to finally have a new place to call our own. The good news is that I've got saved some of our testimonials, so that page should be up by tomorrow. But a lot of this will be under construction, bleh. We've got a few new toys, as this new host gives us a lot more room to play around. However, with the new domain, I wouldn't be surprised if we get more than our usual amount of visitors. Some may have potential, and others may think they are good enough to join us, but we're not ready to open up yet. We want to at least have a few pages working before we welcome you guys back in, but by the time you read this, it will be a few days ago. How's the future? Do we have flying cars yet, huh? Also, if you ask anyone, the background music is entitled Lost in My Thoughts. I really like it. Okay, so 2 things. Number 1, this seems to suggest that the website wasn't made open to the public until that day, and that this post was posted to the community board before it went public. Second of all, this isn't plot relevant, but the site did have background music, which was honestly kind of baller. Editing David, if you can, play it here for everyone. Neko then continues. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be a mod for much longer. My ascension date is coming up really soon. He finally told me when it was going to be, and it's tomorrow. Haha, it's all I can really think about now. My family can't understand why I'm so excited. Haha, smiley face. Next up is a post from another mod, this time named Duskworld23. DW here. You may notice the slight name change. Figured it was symbolic. we're back for what looks like to be for good. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations, Chris. He sure has taken a huge interest in you lately, lucky you. I'm not surprised it finally gave you an ascension date. I'm happy for you, man. Can you tell I sound jealous? Anyhow, about the move. I know it's been a hectic past couple of days with the domain change and all, but I think we finally found our home, fingers crossed. This will no doubt attract more potential children, and the more the merrier, I say. The site's going to be under construction for a while due to me and Rem having to transfer all the data over here, and unfortunately not everything ended up being saved. We have lots of stuff we're going to have to try and rebuild. We have done it before though, and we can do it again. If you guys know any of our guys, in quotation marks, feel free to link them to this site, but try and keep it somewhat exclusive. Some of our old siblings, and you know who, were not meant to be a part of our group. And please guys, don't make Mr. D upset. Interesting to note, D is the 4th letter of the alphabet, and W is the 23rd, so the initials DW equates to the number 423, a number which I said would make multiple appearances throughout the story, and as you can see it already has. Also, I'm unsure if his talk about the name change being symbolic was referring to his own username, which could reflect perhaps the number 423 being important to the Moon Children, or if it's referring to the title of the website, you shouldn't have done that.net. Perhaps the most cryptic post on this announcement board was the one right above Duskworlds, though, from someone simply named, in all caps, Drowned. Their profile picture was of a man in a gas mask, but when it was clicked on, it took you to a photo of the Elegy statue instead. His post was 5 simple words.
You shouldn't be reading this.
The next post after this was from the following day, 2 days before the discovery of the site, from Neko. In this post, he says goodbye and thanks everyone in the cult for giving him purpose and guidance. I never really believed in destiny before, but now I'm realizing that, yeah, this is what I was made to do. I'm counting down the minutes until, haha. I still feel like I'm gonna pinch myself and wake up at any moment. I already have everything I need to go there. It's like all my life I've been waiting for this moment when I can finally achieve what I was meant to do. Keep the site running strong for me while I'm gone. I'll be back to come get you guys soon, smiley face. Duskworld followed this goodbye post by announcing that Neko's ascension was completed and successful, him being the youngest person to ever have a successful one. Interesting that. There were also, at this point, a lot of comments in the guest book from presumably lower-ranking members, one would imagine, than the mods. These are worth looking at as well. First one, posted by David on September 17th, 2010, no relation, obviously. Alright, the site's back up. Finally, I was getting so sick of IRC. Posted by DarkRider404 on September 17th as well. Gotta say, I like the new site. The layout needs work, but it'll do. The important thing is that most of us survived the blackout. Anyone know what happened to Alex? I haven't heard from him. Okay, well that's odd. What's the blackout and who's Alex? We'll get to that in a bit. Posted by CB on the same day. I almost lost my mask. I was freaking out, ROFL. Seriously, sometimes I just get so used to it on my face that I forget to pick it up if I put it down. Also in this guest book was a post from another member saying he hated going to school and that he hated everyone there and that he hated everyone he knew IRL and that he was thinking of, and I am quoting him directly here, so don't come at me for this, going back to my school with my dad's 9mm and to just squeeze and squeeze and squeeze the trigger until I fucking die. Yeah. Pretty damn serious. Surprisingly, some of the other responses on the guest book don't try and dissuade him. One person says that they'd go along with them, and the others don't do a ton to tell them to stop or that they're worried about them. ROFL, one person writes, looks like we're going to lose 2 more soldiers earlier than before the end. You get my seal of approval. The less this world slips comfortably into complacency, the better, IMO. You guys haven't been talking to Luna, have you? Posted by David. After this, another response. Careful guys, we're on a new domain, on a .net now. Take it to PM. So before we go any further, a few things. First of all, if you are struggling in any way, please seek help. I am not comfortable discussing this in detail, but themes of death and suicide are heavy presences in the story. Hence my warning at the start. As such, if those things are triggering for you, just be mindful. Second of all, we have a lot of information to unpack here just from the homepage now, don't we? Okay, what have we learned exactly? Well, we have learned that this is a cult called the Moon Children, that they existed before this point, it seems, but in the last few days, they have begun to work on what seems to be a brand new site from them, presumably in an effort to replace their old one. They seemingly worship the moon, who they refer to as their mother or as Luna, and if that one guest book comment is anything to go by, they wear masks all the time. Both the references to the masks and to the moon evokes Majora's Mask the game. They also recently experienced something called the Blackout, during which it's implied they lost members, and whether they died or this is referring to simply the original website going down and them struggling to get a hold of them is unclear. We know they practice something called Ascension, which already at this point sounds like it may be some sort of ritualistic suicide, which would explain why Neko is no longer able to act as a moderator after going through his. And there also seems to be someone named Mr. D, who seems to be the group's current leader. Several posts and bits of text on the website refer to Luna, and alongside her, someone who is referred to as him or he. Perhaps that's who Mr. D is. It's hard to say. Heck, one guestbook comment even asks if anyone's been hearing from Luna or from him, so they seem to be on a similar level. Whatever his position in this group is, he seems to be feared by the others, one mod telling the others not to make him angry. And then there's that one strange post on the mod's announcement board, the one from Drowned, which seems to be directed to the people investigating the site specifically. The hidden elegy statue also suggests that this might be Ben or somehow connected to him. Now, before we move on, there's one last post on the guest book we should examine. Ifrit, you might want to take a look at the contact page. Something's not right about it. This was the next clue for the players to figure out where to look next. It was as good of a lead as any, so they decided to give the contact page a look. The page at a glance seems to be a bog-standard contact page, a form to fill out if you want to message the group, a long spiel about how Luna may be calling out to you, and that sort of thing. But players started adding to the URL of the contact page, adding another slash, and then following it up with the names of characters. And there weren't many, but it turned out that some characters did have their own personal contact pages. Ifrit's, for his part, read as such: "Should you know what question to ask, the gate to truth will be opened." And that was it on his page for the time being. Next up was a page for Drowned. His page gave the players this giant image of a strange misshapen green man, which had the file name kelbrus.jpg. Keep the name Kelbrus in mind for later. The page's title was Yet Another Cipher, which translated to
My eyes. They took my eyes.
creepy! Finally, let's look at Ben's page, because yes, he did have his own. His page featured a timer, one which was counting down to something called the 4th day. The 4th day apparently was going to end the following day at midnight. The site was launched 3 days before its discovery, so the day after it would be the 4th day of its existence, which must be what this is referring to. Above this timer, though, was a message. You have to warn them. Interesting, we've got yet another Majora's Mask parallel here, specifically a countdown to something, though this is down to the ending of a 4th day as opposed to a final 3rd day, like in the game. That's all there was on the contact page at this point, so let's keep exploring. About featured a list of the mods and their likes and dislikes. None of it's too important, but we do learn that the mod who goes by the name Ifrit also goes by the name Rodney. Also at the bottom of the page is a list of people who the creators of the site wish to thank for their help. This list includes several names, including Rosa. Interesting. The page titled Creed featured a chant used during initiation rituals by the Moon Children, which on its own does more to confirm that Ascension seems to be some sort of ritualized suicide. A part of it reads like this: "May we receive the greatest glory of all. May we ascend to the heavens themselves. We are the Moon's children. We are mortal angels." The next page listed on the site is titled Theories, and most of it's pretty uninteresting. It's sharing various doomsday prophecies, like the Mayans predicting that in 2012 the world was going to end, that kind of thing. And then at the bottom, it shares one titled The Luna Prophecy. Dating back to 1998, a moonchild named Kelbrus, like the strange green man, received several whispers from Luna herself. The Order was still young then, and Kelbrus was the first member to have been talked to by her. Rather than ascending him, however, these whispers informed him of how the end will come about. The whispers were brief and vague, detailed below.
Break free of the prison. Engulf the world. Man will be betrayed by its minions, and I will be brought down from the sky, consuming everything.
It's worth noting that the number 3 is reported by Kelbrus to have been said numerous times, sometimes in between words, sometimes even between letters, so it's assumed that there is some kind of significance there. Kelbrus was later found electrocuted. Whether it was foul play or an ascension was never determined. Although transcended, Kelbrus's discovery has made him a legendary figure within the Moon Children, and much of the Order today is based off of that prophecy. Now, as I mentioned, Kelbrus was the name of the image of that weird green guy on Drown's page. And yeah, it seems like this isn't just a suicide cult, it's a doomsday suicide cult, which believes that one day the moon will fall, ending all of mankind like Skull Kid is attempting to do in Majora's Mask. Finally, there was one more page for the players to explore. One labeled The Truth, echoing in part the name of the text document that was released at the end of the last arc. However, it seemed to be password protected. Whatever's on this page cannot be accessed by us at this time. However, there is another hidden message, this time in the source code of the page. It's what they don't want you to know. Well, that's odd for sure. So we've learned even more lore about the Moon Children here. We've learned about a now dead prophet named Kelbrus, a little bit more about their beliefs, and we now have a mysterious page which we cannot get into. All of this took a while for the players to find, by the way, and it wasn't until the final day, so like 12, 15, 24 hours after all this, when the timer on the Ben page only had 2 hours left, that players ended up finding an email address hidden on Ifrit's contact page, and people began to ask him questions directly. Interestingly, even though the About section said that his name was Rodney, he responded to these emails with the signature Matt Hubris, a completely different name entirely. They also discovered the security question for his email login as well, which was, the first person I killed to gain entrance to the Moon Children is, which suggests that Ifrit/Matt/Rodney/whatever he's calling himself these days is a murderer. Players began to email him excitedly and worriedly. As far as I'm aware, most of these emails are lost, but some were saved. Like I said before, archiving this stuff is really important, you guys. User: how did Ben drown? Ben? You've heard of Ben? Where is he? The user then tries to share a link to Jadisible's channel with Ifrit. As far as I can tell, he says, he's everywhere. No, we lost Ben during the blackout. We haven't heard from him. If you aren't aware, you're next. I'm not sure what your group is planning, but you might want to consider some alternatives. He then linked to Ben's contact page, and if you're wondering why he started warning Ifrit, I'm jumping a little bit ahead in the timeline, and I'll explain it in a second. The user at this point tried to link Matt, or Ifrit, or whatever, to Ben's contact page with a countdown, and this is what he had to say in response. That page redirects to a 404. Are you sure you typed that in right? I'm sure you're going through a lot of email messages, but I hope you understand that I feel something dramatic will happen in an hour or so. Do you know what is in the truth section of your website? Yes. Could you perhaps let me know? Your eyes. They aren't worthy to see it. Is this a treatable ailment? Give them to me. Another user asked who on earth Drowned is, since nobody on the announcement board acknowledged him, and he was acting kinda weird, and Ifrit said that he was a friend of mine and left it at that. One user even inquired about Rosa. Did you kill Rosa to gain entrance to the Moon Children? Of course not. Rosa is my sister. I've heard that Ben drowned. Is that true? I don't know, but that may explain why we never found the body. Several others also inquired about Ben, and interestingly, Ifrit only ever refers to him in the lowercase, not capital B, capital E, capital N, just Ben like you would write a normal name. Would I kill Ben? Did you? It would lay my mind to rest knowing that my brother is gone instead of clinging to false hopes that he may still be alive. What happened to Ben? We think he ascended. We're not sure though. He was a good friend of mine. What about Majora? Who? Majora's Mask. What does Majora's Mask have to do with Ben? The Zelda game? Nothing. Why? So that's another odd thing about all this. Despite the obvious parallels going on here between the game and the fact that the website's own icon was actually of the titular Majora's Mask, Ifrit didn't seem to know or care about it. One user messaged him with a picture of his own prop replica of Majora's Mask, saying that it was his mask and that he thought that he should wear it as part of his initiation ceremony. Why base your mask on a video game? It doesn't represent you. Why, it represents my love for the game. No, it represents unoriginality. It represents filth. By this point, an hour was left on the timer and the homepage of the website suddenly changed. The weird comment from Drowned on the announcement board vanished, and a new song started playing in the background. This is a reversed version of the Happy Mask Salesman theme from Majora's Mask, and the MP3 file for it was titled Matt's Final Hour. And oh shit, that meant that whatever was going to happen, it was probably going to happen to Ifrit. All of a sudden, after this point, Ifrit stopped answering the questions in his emails. He didn't stop responding to them, but to each he replied in the exact same way. Hang on, something keeps knocking at my door. 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 Meanwhile, on Jadisable's channel, lyrics from a song were posted to his recent activity section. Specifically, they were lyrics from the song Who's That Knockin' on My Door? It seems that whatever's about to happen, and whatever's mainly got control of the Jadisable account at this time, seems to be responsible for it. And then all of a sudden, Ifrit's contact page changed its title to a bunch of nonsense. And when this nonsense was plugged into the end of a URL for YouTube, it took people to a brand new video. This wasn't just any video though, it was posted as a response to the video free.wmv on Jadisable's channel. So this was another feature of YouTube that doesn't really exist anymore. You could post your own video and have it listed as a response video to another, with yours being listed underneath it. I don't know when they phased this out, but I don't think it lasted very long as a feature. Now, this video that was posted as a response is interesting because it was posted by a channel which was called The Link Missing. And then if you went into the channel's About section, the name for the person who owned it was listed as Alex. This seemingly is the Alex who vanished during the blackout. All of a sudden, you shouldn't have done that.net seemingly went down. The homepage just said it was all down for maintenance. And then Jad's account once again posted to 4chan, sharing the same message he shared 4 days before when he posted the truth.rtf. New day of filming? Let's get this going. The following morning after this, the site returned. You shouldn't have done that.net was back. But there were some changes to it. For one thing, there were announcements on the announcement board from the mods, just like there were before, but Ifrit's message was gone, as was Drown's. Neko, however, was back, and he was posting excitedly that he was going to ascend very soon, but the announcement that he had ascended was gone, as were some other posts, like in the guest book, for example. It took players a little bit of time to realize what had happened. Thanks to Alex, whoever that was, playing the Song of Time, the players were suddenly able to access an older version of the website. They had essentially time-traveled in-game. This is why some posts weren't on the guest book and why Neko hasn't ascended yet. Unfortunately, though, despite that fact, Ifrit himself did not make it. He had seemingly completely disappeared. He was not posting on the website in any capacity. There was even a message from one of the mods saying that they needed to add someone to the team as they were short by one. Seeing as Ifrit, for example, was completely missing, it was clear that this wasn't an exact replica of events as they played out in the first timeline, if you will. And so, players began to investigate the site yet again to see what else was different. They started by checking Ifrit's contact page, and they discovered this. Expecting to find someone else? It seemed that Ben had taken Ifrit, and due to this, for some reason, he didn't come back after the timeline reset, despite the fact that Neko, who also died in the first version of events, was resuscitated and did come back to life. They also discovered Alex's page, the name of the guy who went missing after the blackout and the one who had, played the Song of Time. On his page, they actually discovered some hidden text. Another who knows of them. Chooses. Mask. Sends aid. Fallen. Vehement. Deity. He is alone against them. Now, thanks to the timeline reset, players were accessing an earlier version of the website than they had first accessed. During the first cycle, they found the website on its second or third day of existence. This was the very first day of the website's existence. And so they decided to see if the truth page, which had been password locked, was available to them. It wasn't password protected, but there wasn't anything else there either besides a strange cryptic message. Still in the progress of moving everything over, sorry for the delay. It is imperative that we find him and silence him before we can reveal our intentions. Also, I can't figure out how to make this private. We've got about 2 days or so before we open up this website to the world, so I figure it'll be okay for now. Not like anyone can stumble upon this, but can someone help out with that? Duskworld. Nothing else on the site seemed to have changed, however, and this is when a player who went by the name Freyadutend, he had an idea. Seeing how the Song of Time from Majora's Mask had an effect, it reset time on this website for some reason. He sent in a response to one of the videos on Jadisible's channel as well, of footage of Link playing another song from the game. So I didn't really explain this earlier, and maybe I should have, but one of the main mechanics in Majora's Mask is that by playing songs on your ocarina, you can do magic. Not just magic to reset time, but to do other things as well. This is the Song of Inverted Time. It's a secret song in the game. This is a secret song in the game that is essentially the Song of Time just played backwards. When you do so, it essentially gives you extra time. Time begins to move a lot slower in the video game. I believe in the remake it makes days last twice as long, specifically. As I'm sure you can imagine, this is very useful when playing Majora's Mask because it gives you time that you may otherwise not have before the moon falls. It seems that this song did have some sort of effect as well, because Jadisible's YouTube channel posted a response to it in code. You've begun to start thinking. You've begun to catch on. You've made a discovery today. But how long until that blessing becomes a curse? So it seems that, yes, the song did trigger something, and that meant that, hypothetically, players could in fact send in other songs from the game to alter reality and to cause things to happen. This would end up proving to be quite useful. One user, and this is another person who I'm acquainted with to an extent, named MF Greth, shared the next song, this time one of Link playing New Wave Bossa Nova. Now, in Majora's Mask, New Wave Bossa Nova is played to inspire the singer Melody to find her voice again. It unsilences her, if you will. Greth hoped that, seeing that Ifrit had been silenced by Ben, as in he was no longer found anywhere on the website, and as such the players could no longer communicate with him, this would allow them to speak to him. Players, however, did not get a response from Ifrit. They got one from someone named Rosa using his email account. Rosa told players that she was Ifrit's brother and that she hadn't been able to contact him. Once again, a lot of these emails are now lost. And this is when someone decided to play another song, this time the Song of Healing. The Song of Healing in Majora's Mask is used to help someone pass on if they are dying or in pain. It frees their spirit from their body, often leaving a mask in its wake that Link can use to transform himself. I am unsure what the intention of the player here was, especially because the reversed Song of Healing, called the Song of Unhealing, is the music most associated with Ben. So we're kind of very lightly evoking the entity here. This is when Rosa's email suddenly became a lot more panicked. Can you speak? Why did you play that? We need to know how to fix this before you reverse time. What do we do? The blackout. Something happened in the blackout. Matt, what song should we play? I am Rosa. Who is this? Do you know where Matt is? Rosa, something is going on. What happened to Alex? Give me as much info as possible. We may be able to save Matt somehow. All I can tell you is that this is Ben's fault. And this is when the homepage of youshouldn'thavedonethat.net suddenly changed, as a new post from a mod suddenly appeared. The mod had the username, "Who do you think this is?" and their profile pic was of that green guy labeled Kelbris from that other page. And his message read,
I am knocking at your door. Let me in. I want to speak.
Players began panicking, certain that they were going to lose Rosa, and, well, they did. I can hear it outside my door. Leave. Get out now. Rosa, where do you live? I live in Oregon. It's outside my door. They're coming for you. You need to get out now. I can't go anywhere. Rosa, what is the username and password? Quickly, we can save the others. Rosa, please, hurry, there's still time. Matt Hubris 423/The Lens of Truth. If you can escape, do so. Do not waste this chance. Please, call the fucking police. It stopped. Give me your address. Is it leaving? Rosa, are you still there? Please, tell me you're safe. Rosa, please, the login isn't working. Fuck. The player who exchanged these emails with Rosa is going to be someone we're going to be hearing a lot from later on, by the way, so just remember them. As an aside, apparently the reason why that username and password didn't work was because the user was supposed to wait until the start of the next cycle to actually try and get into the page. This was confirmed in an interview with the game master Alex Hall, and it's a damn shame this user never got the chance to use it. Hoping to save Rosa, the only point of contact players had at this point, from Calbris, a user ended up submitting the Song of Time as a response, and it was accepted, resetting the timeline yet again. However, the following day, they discovered that this was of no use. In the tags for the video Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines Rosa on the Jazzable channel, there were new words, this time reading, "You didn't save her." As an aside, and I'm just saying this here because I don't have another good place to put it, this may not be interesting to anyone else, I don't know. But if you look under the Ben Drown tag on AO3, you mostly see people using him as like a crossover character with other creepypasta characters, and there's no mention of the ARG or any of these other characters on there, except for the very first story about Ben under the tag, which features both Ifrit and Rosa, as well as the fact that they're brother and sister as part of the narrative. I just think it's funny to see an old piece of creepypasta fanfiction actually acknowledge the story's broader lore. That's the only reason why I'm sharing this. Now that the ARG has wrapped up, some more recent fics do sometimes integrate stuff from the ARG, but that's a discussion for another day. Not long after this, someone then submitted another song, specifically The Oath to Order, for some reason. I don't know why. It was a mistake. I really don't know why this user did this. In Majora's Mask, the Oath to Order is only ever played once towards the very end of the game, when you use it to summon the 4 giants after you've awakened them so they stop the moon from falling. What the user thought this would achieve within the parameters of what was happening in the ARG is impossible to know. But soon after doing so, Alex's YouTube channel replied to the video in a comment. No, it's too soon. And this is when a new video was posted to Jadisable's channel. Players interpreted this video of adult Link from Ocarina of Time getting killed as meaning that Alex was killed. When he posted the Song of Time, it was footage from Ocarina of Time, and it featured adult Link, so symbolically it seemed to make sense. Someone followed this up, though, with another response video of Link using a fairy after getting struck down, though, which seems to be accepted. For context, in the Legend of Zelda games, if you die and you have a fairy in one of your bottles, the fairy will revive you and give you all your health back. This seems to have been accepted by the game master. At least I think so, because another video was uploaded to Jad's channel, although it is no longer there, which seemed to respond to this. This was then followed by another video, this time entitled HuntYouDown.wmv. players were understandably confused. Dark Link, who seemed to represent some sort of evil, an enemy of theirs perhaps, was shown to have taken control of Navi, Link's companion from the first game. What this meant was very unclear. After sending loads and loads of songs in quick succession and just causing a lot of chaos unintentionally, players were left unsure of what to do. There didn't seem to be any changes to You Shouldn't Have Done That.net at the start of this new cycle, and this is when all of a sudden, something happened. Something which would foreshadow an issue the story would face later down the line. Specifically, the creator broke character and announced that the game was going on hiatus. So to give a bit of context to this, much like the character of Jadisable, the creator, as in Alex Hall, was also an undergrad student at this time, and he had run into financial trouble. The game was getting too expensive for him to continue. Presumably, what specifically was the problem was paying to maintain the website, although I'm a little unclear on that. As such, he told everyone that events were going to be paused for a bit, but that in the meantime, he was happy to conduct an interview out of character with the players. But before that, he reposted the truth.rtf to 4chan yet again, this time with a whole new photo, specifically one of the Happy Mask salesman. This image's name was The Father, suggesting that the father mentioned by Rosa in the Vampire the Masquerade video way back when was referring somehow to someone or something also represented by the Happy Mask salesman, which makes sense. Rosa specifically says in the video, "Why is he smiling?" The father. And the one thing that the Happy Mask salesman almost always does, actually even when he's angry he's still doing it, is smile. Anyhow, back to that interview that Jad said he was going to do. This was the player's first glimpse behind the curtain, and many flocked to the thread he started for this on 4chan's X board in hopes of getting a hint of where the story was going to go. By the way, going off of one of the questions from this Q&A, apparently even by this point, video game creepypastas were already considered by some to be kinda cliché, which I find very interesting. Out of character, Jad explained a bit about the mechanics of the game so far. He explained that Kelbris was one of the 4 giants, and that he had expected the game to last 4 cycles, one for each giant. This implied that, like in Majora's Mask, we were supposed to somehow awaken these giants in order to achieve something, although up to this point, Kelbris has come off as kind of a malevolent figure. It's implied he's the one who killed Rosa, for example. One of his other comments also suggested in this that perhaps Ifrit was also one of the giants, but I'm a little unclear on that, so take it with a grain of salt. In any case, this at the very least gave the players some direction to take things in when the game started again. And a couple of weeks later, You Shouldn't Have Done That.net did in fact return. Jad had been asking for donations and had managed to get enough to get the site back up and running. Yay! Players who were keeping an eye on the website cheered, and word began to spread to everyone about how the game had returned. Now, at first, the homepage had nothing but an image of a gas mask and a cipher which, when translated, gave players some nonsense which they plugged in as a URL extension which led them to another page on the site. Underneath this cipher were 2 random words, which we'll get to later. However, on that URL extension, players discovered a file labeled as number 1. Thinking that maybe there were other files, players changed the number in the URL from 1 to 2, because the number was also in the URL. And this is when they discovered another page, which was password protected, but by using one of the 2 random words alongside the cipher on the home page, they were able to access it. They then changed the URL extension to feature the number 3, used the second keyword that they were given as the password, and got into there as well. 3 different text files, all labeled as 1 through 3, were discovered as a result of this. You didn't think I was done with you, did you? You're done playing when I say you are done playing. The next text file was titled thelie.txt. This is just a dream. The third and final one that they'd found thus far was titled thetruth.txt. Wake up. You have to wake up. And this is when the homepage suddenly updated with a whole new message. You are waking up now. 13 minutes. This is followed up by another update. You are waking up now. 5 minutes. Finally, there was one last message, pulling the plug. And this is when the site suddenly went back to normal. In universe, it seems that this hiatus was explained as the users having somehow been asleep and only now having woke up, whatever that means. And this is when players began to seriously mobilize, excited that the game had returned. Someone, I am unsure who, wrote up a copy-pasted message to try and rally the troops, as it were, which was shared across various websites, forums, and chat rooms to get people involved. This copy-pasted message was given the name The Call to Arms, which I shall now read to you. Alright guys, here's the deal for those of you just tuning in. Shit went down at around 5:30 today, and it's developing by the hour. The site was fucked up with a whole lot of shit, but it only lasted around 30 minutes before reverting back. We as a community need to get this ball rolling and to kick this ARG's fucking ass and to put Ben in his place. However, right now we're scattered and scarce and we need to unite. Here's a list of some of the jobs we need done to make this happen. 1. We need several runners to go spread the word that this is back on. A lot of our good theory crafters had fallen out of touch, and if we're going to have any hope of beating this, we're going to need their help. This means going to Reddit, Zelda Universe, Dig, Kotaku, Joystick, anywhere this has had a big following, just to drop the word that shit went down and that we need help. We're going to need all the big guns for this one, and we're definitely going to be seeing some old faces returning in terms of the community. 2. We need people who were online at the time. I know there were only a handful of you, which is why this really counts, to go to Jadispel Wiki, dump the events of 10.6.10, and post any helpful information you might have. Stuff you noticed, things you saved, any screenshots you took, any evidence. Leave the actual page strictly for just jumping content, and then go to the discussion/talk portion of the page to shoot theories back and forth and to try and piece this all together. 3. We need theory crafters to analyze this and to help out in the chat rooms. Jadisable.jachango.com seems to be the most popular one right now. And on the forum, you shouldn't have done that, forums.proboards.com. So we can start getting some theories going and maybe starting to make sense of this. We should have a team devoted to trying to find out where Alex, Link, might be. We'll probably need his help again. 4. From what I've seen, there were several Caesarean cipher codes that look to be much more complex than anything we've seen so far, so we definitely need some expert cipher crackers to start solving these. If you are adept at cracking them in the first part, then we're going to need your help more than ever for some of these. 5. We also need messengers to spread this message around. Just copy-paste as needed, but don't spam. Let's try and keep this post at the top of their respective pages as much as possible. We're going to have a lot of influx of noobs and returning vets that have no idea what's going on, so we need to copy-paste this brief crash course to help them out and to spread the word. If we get new recruits that have no idea what's going on, be sure to direct them to the youshouldn'thavedonethat.net website and to tell them to read the chapter section. That much is still the same for now. Oh yeah, so for a period, the website did feature an out-of-character summary of all the events that had happened up to that point. 6. We need people to snoop around through the website's various URLs. Jadispel has been known to hide secrets in them for people clever enough to play with them. Mess with them. See if you can find anything secret. 7. Lastly, if possible, we need archivers to help keep an up-to-date archive of the events so people can catch up easily. I recommend making a new page on the wiki. There's a job for everyone and everyone can help out. And hell, feel free to split it up into different teams of people or even different communities of people. Like the Zelda Universe forums would be responsible for finding Alex, the Reddit forums in charge of the theory crafting, etc. We're going to have to pull together to beat this. Ben beat us once, and there's no way we're going to let him beat us again. And hold off on the song playing until we know for sure what we're dealing with. Let's do work, boys. And so, they did. Players theorized that there were these 3 files labeled 1 through 3, all of them with slightly different URLs, just a different number at the end. And if there were 1 through 3 files, there may be even more. So they started playing with that, and it turns out there were even more hidden files. A lot of them were hidden behind ciphers and passwords, and players started going through them, solving puzzles and discovering passwords to unlock all of them as they went. The contents of these files, for the most part, aren't really that important, except for one in particular, one of the very last ones. File 59, which was seemingly a secret message for us from Ifrit himself. If you're reading this, then you found the secret message. This is the last one I can send out. I'm not dead. It's sitting right in front of you. You are meant to survive this. You can't give him what he wants. I don't know how to tell you this, but there's no more Link now. He was the last thing that stood between you and it as some sort of conduit. That conduit is severed now. There is not. Consider this is the real thing that is separating you from him. There are, deliberate typos in this, so if you're wondering why it sounds kind of janky, that's why. He will try to get to you. It will break you, but you have to remain strong. You cannot presumably defeat it. It is sadistic. It will try and give you guys a fighting chance like it's given everyone else. It wants you to try and resist, to try and be fooled into thinking that you have any semblance of free will. Do not buy it. Do not believe it. It is always watching. It will lead you into truth.txt into oblivion if you let it. Do not be fooled. If something is too good to be true, be wary. You must use this overconfidence and systematic prediction against it. How? I do not know. That is something that I could not figure out before the end. Even now, though, it's allowing me to reach you through this message. Your first instinct may be to assume that this message has been tampered with, but then you may not understand who it really is. It wants to play. It wants a challenge. It has led you to, what are you talking about? Is far for a reason. But now you will be given the means to fight back. I say, let its arrogance be its undoing. There are strength in numbers. You no doubt have others who will help collaborate with you. There are those who have left behind clues subtle enough for it to not realize their significance. They may help you if you can find them. Combine your brains together. Starting with the most recent glitch, that was referring to the weirdness on the homepage, compile every bit of evidence you have and share it amongst yourselves. Only then you may gain the upper hand. Do not ever let it use you. It thinks it is in control, yet despite all the omnipotence in the world, there is nothing more dangerous than the illusion of compliance. Underneath this were 2 ciphers. One of these ciphers was supposedly never solved. We thought we had solved it, but then we weren't sure if it was correct, although Alex Hall did confirm that we had solved it, but maybe he was misremembering, or he just wanted to give us a win since it had been unsolved for like 5 or 6 years at that point. Fun fact, I was the guy who messaged him asking if that was the correct answer to the cipher, but even though he said yes, it was eventually rejected and it's still unsolved. The other cipher, though, was solved at the time. It reads out as such. Cade Hendricks, you are in danger. Okay, so, who the fuck is Cade Hendricks? Well, he was the guy who got the login info from Rosa. And in the years since this ARG began, he's also gone on to be an extremely successful game developer, working on projects such as Ark Survival Evolved, for example. But at this point, none of that had happened for him yet, IRL. He was just a guy among many other guys playing the game. However, since he had been name-dropped specifically, players began looking for him, discovering his DeviantArt page and a YouTube channel attached to that called Ryukaki. And I'm just going to start calling him Ryukaki going forward, since that's what the wiki exclusively called him when I first discovered this ARG. Some players ended up tracking down Ryukaki to a private group chat he had on a website where they started grilling him, desperate for answers. In these conversations, he alluded to having some strange experiences of late. And he wasn't the only one who was experiencing something strange. Elsewhere on the internet, as this was going down, Jadisable's channel posted something new. No group knows anything more than anyone else. There is no private information, only different theories. You are all equals. Sephirium has no significance, just the next lamb wandering blindly into its inevitable slaughter. This will hurt you, Sephirium. You are now stripped of this resource as punishment for your arrogance, and yet, by eliminating that website, this is the most charitable act I will ever do. Do not think that there is any place that is beyond my reach. At the exact same time that this message was posted to YouTube, the live journal group, WAAL, which stood for We Are All Link, which was a very prolific group in the community, was suddenly wiped. All of its posts were deleted. Sephirium was a member of WAAL, of WAL, if you will, and that's why he was called out specifically. This happened after there had been a lot of drama where other players had begun to accuse WAL of getting more information than others, hence what this message from the Jadisable channel was alluding to. The implication here as well was that it seemed that Ben was taking credit for the group losing its information, like it had somehow actually hacked in and wiped the page. And to an extent, that is kind of what actually happened, believe it or not. I am actually friends with Sephirium, the guy mentioned in that message, and he was called out for no real reason here, as I said, but according to him, someone at the time, for some reason, gave Jad the login details that allowed him to access the administrator account for that live journal group, and he was able to log in and wreck the group, as he claimed he did. Also, hi Seth, hope you're watching, hope you're enjoying. The following day, Ryukaki released 4 videos in quick succession to his YouTube channel. In the first video, titled Sounds.wmv, he talks about how he woke up in the middle of the night after hearing strange sounds. As he walks around his house in the dark, 2 glowing lights, almost like eyeballs, briefly appear on camera, though according to Ryukaki, he saw no such thing when he was filming. At the end, he says this.
If anything happens to me, if I disappear, if anything goes awry, don't let everything we've done be in vain. Don't let this all go to nothing. Jadisable, he's reached out to us. He's given us a chance. Please, don't let that be wasted.
In the second video, Ryukaki shows us his very early 2000 cell phone, which had been ringing constantly. He tells us that every time he answers it, the Song of Unhealing plays.
I don't know what he wants from me. I don't understand what this is all about. But it's getting really freaking weird. Every time I pick it up, there it is again. He keeps calling. Listen. Every single time. No image. It's the same damn song and I want it to stop.
This was actually happening to a lot of players at the time. There had been a contact page with a form to put in personal information on the Moon Children's website, and people who had entered their phone numbers into it were receiving these calls, funnily enough. The next video was called theorchard.wmv, which had this as its video description. Got a call on my way back from school. I tried to attend class today, but I couldn't really focus. I kept hearing that music. This is being uploaded from an anonymous location using a swap-out SD card that I will throw away after this upload to be sure Ben cannot infect my camera and change what you are seeing. I still have a lot of footage from at that school to go over. I'll be in touch. So this video is basically just him wandering around and babbling, saying he's gotten into this super deep and that he knows stuff, and he's talking very vaguely, to be perfectly honest. And this is when that video was followed up by another one titled orchard2.wmv.
This is Kate Hendricks. I'm outside the property where my bike was. My phone is gone. I don't know if somebody stole it or what happened, but it's gone. I was in the orchard, and I don't know if I caught any of the sound or video on my camera. But there were some dogs freaking out, and it wasn't at me. They were chasing something else. I don't know if I got them, but apparently they scared it off, because after a short while, one of the dogs was gone, and they've mellowed out and came over to check on me, so I don't know what the hell is going on, but I don't know where I'm safe. I'm gonna try and keep moving.
If you're wondering what the orchard is, we don't know. Also, according to the second video, Ryukaki's bike was stolen after he ran away riding it. This fact that his bike was stolen inexplicably became kind of a meme in the community afterwards. People started joking that Kelbris had stolen his bike. And then a friend of his from the community shared an email that he had just received from him not long after this video's posting. Subject: The Lens of Truth. Spread the word. YouTube, IRC, everywhere. I've seen it. I think I've got it on video. Do not trust any source other than me or the website. I don't have time to explain. I'll be in touch. This was followed up by yet another email. Subject: Final hours. He's found me. He has my scent or something. I don't know. I guess I never really knew. I have answers for everyone. They are being prepared. I've got everything ready. It won't be what they want, but it should be enough to fight whatever this thing is. Tell them I'm sorry I couldn't help more. Please spread the word everywhere. Tell everyone. The website is the key. Everything else is a lie. You must tell them to see clearly past the deception, to look away from the false prophets. If they let themselves be led down the wrong path by anyone, everything is lost. It's too late for me. Make my work count. It seemed that something had begun to hunt down Ryukaki, and it may be close to catching him at this point. In a fifth video he then uploaded after this, which seemed to have no story-relevant content from what I can tell, it was just an old video of him talking to a friend. There was a cipher in the description which took players to a Mediafire page where they found Ryukaki's actual final message. I'm not going to read all of it, but in part the message reads as such. The truth has always been right there, like the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. The answers were given to you. Few things have been recurring, but if you look, if you really look, they are there. The salvation comes in noticing what has emerged in the pattern. There will be something more than these notes soon. Again, I will not tell you when. Just keep watching. If you can get to it before him, it will contain all the parts of the puzzle, but it will be up to you to put them together before he does. And then there's some nonsense, which I'm assuming is a cipher. These are my last words. If after the file following this is received, you still haven't figured things out, then I guess I failed you all. I hope Ben does not get to things before you do. But know that over the past few days, I have not only trained you to know what the answers are, but I spelled them out for you as well. I don't think you'll hear from me again. Thank you all. Goodbye, and good luck. This was followed up by the final video from him titled lastwords.wmv. The video was kind of nonsense. It was just kind of a collage of images related to the ARG, but in the audio was this, if you played it backwards.
Something about, I don't know, a boy dying here some time ago. It's meaningless to me, but people's superstitions make for great house prices. 23rd. Just moved into the new place. It's decent.
This suggests that the house Ryukaki was living in was perhaps the house Ben used to live in before he drowned. Now, nothing that occurred to Ryukaki was explicitly acknowledged by any of the other characters in the game. But around this time, Jadisable did release a new video to his own channel. No one came. And this is when Jad suddenly broke character again, announcing that the second arc of the story was over and that the third would be beginning after a short break. I'm counting what I'm about to start talking about next as still part of Arc 2 though, because the game continued not long after this, and the final arc began years and years afterwards, so it makes more sense to mush what we're about to talk about in with Arc 2, and then to talk about Arc 3 as being all the stuff that came after the years-long hiatus that I'm going to talk about in a bit. It makes the most sense to me. Also, this supposedly third arc was so short, it makes no sense to differentiate it from Arc 2. Did that make sense? I'm sorry if it didn't. One thing which Jad did end up announcing after this character break was that not only was the next arc of the game going to be the final one, it would focus on a video game that he had actually begun to develop himself. Writing about the game, Alex Hall said that making the final phase of the story has been the most intensive project I've ever taken on, and it's all starting to come to fruition in the next few weeks. The next update will be featuring some screenshots of the game and introducing the build-up event, and this will probably be the last out-of-character update you guys get. In an out-of-character Q&A, Jad expanded on this as well. You mentioned the first game, one person asked. Does that mean you are producing numerous games? Additionally, as someone who is not in America, will I have as equal an opportunity as someone in America to complete this third arc? Additionally, why is the father smiling? There will be more than one game released. Each one deals with different, well, you'll see. If you aren't in America, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to participate just as much as someone who is. And as for that last question, I can't answer it. This video game never came to pass, but the assumption at the time was that he would release them and they would complete the story. I guess everyone thought that he would just make it in Unity or something. I don't really know. During this Q&A, Jad also alluded to the Ryukaki arc, as the events around him had begun to be called. When asked whether knowledge of it would be necessary for Arc 3, he said no. In retrospect, this foreshadowed a drama which would come further down the line that I am unfortunately going to have to talk about. Hey, so just a heads up, there was an issue with the mic very early on when I started recording this next part. So for about the first minute, it starts off with very poor audio quality, and then it kind of gets better, and then for a little bit after that, it also gets bad again, and then it goes back to normal. I do apologize. The rest of the footage is fine, besides that earliest bit. Anyhow, sometime after this, Jad posted out of character onto his YouTube account, asking for people to apply to become moderators for something. We didn't actually know what at this point, but we did find out very soon after. Meanwhile, You Shouldn't Have Done That.net changed yet again. This time to feature a timer counting down. When it hit 0, the site itself just shut down entirely. At that exact same moment, binary code was posted to Jadisable's YouTube account. This decoded into being a URL, specifically one for a forum called Within Hubris. This was followed by another encoded message. The final piece of the puzzle is sliding into place. When the bastion is completed, you will have everything you need. Under the announcements tab of the forum, players are greeted by a message from a user cryptically named Guide. Let me be the first to welcome you to Within Hubris, they said. Here, all of us walk a fine line between absolution and conviction. This is our last safe haven, our last bastion of defense, and yet it houses our greatest minds and our strongest warriors. So this forum seems to have been created, at least in part, in response to how divided the player base had become. I alluded to it earlier, but there was a lot of community infighting and a lot of inner group drama because so many different people were involved and there wasn't really a single place where they all gathered. Someone who actually took part in all of this at the time once described it to me as being on the same level of high school drama, only dumber. By creating an official forum where players could not only interact with one another, but where story beats could also play out, the community sort of started to come together. And this forum was excellent, I have to say. For a good couple of years, it was kind of my home base on the internet, though we've not gotten to the point where I personally entered events yet. Let's explore this new forum, shall we? So there was the announcements tab, which I've already mentioned. And underneath that was another section labeled as Story, where threads focused on analyzing the story could be posted. One section was for fully fleshed out theories, another was for minor bits of speculation. Beneath that was a more general community segment with subforums for things like community general, video games, and fanworks. And then finally, right below that, was the final subforum on the site. A strange one called Wayward Horizon. What was in this subforum, players could not tell. Access to it was password protected, and they soon tried to figure out how to get into it. In addition to this, soon after the website was discovered, there was a period where 2 extra subforums briefly appeared and then disappeared. To quote the Jadisable wiki, forum group Help Me with subforum Please God Help Me appeared first. Forum group My Eyes with subforum They Took appeared around 10 minutes later. Over the next few days, as players settled in and learned who were the mods and as they got to know each other in this new setting, new topics suddenly started appearing under the Wayward Horizon subforum. Now, they couldn't access anything that was in that section of the site, but they could see the names of threads as they were getting posted there. In addition to that, they could also see who was posting those threads. One thread was by Neko, another by Duskworld23, and then one final one was posted by a user whose entire name was just a bunch of question marks. Realizing from this that maybe other characters from the ARG may have had accounts on the forum as well, accounts for several other characters were discovered, including Jadisable, Rosa, Kelbris, Ryukaki, and others. I suspect in hindsight that these were made to make game jacking more difficult for people who may have wanted to derail the ARG for their own amusement. You know, if they can't pretend to be the characters, they can't take the story into a whole new direction. But that was not clear at the time. And to be fair, a few of these did actually end up coming into play. For example, players discovered that Rose's user description had changed to include more binary code which translated to bastinado. Bastinado? I don't know how to say it. Using this as a hint, the password to Wayward Horizon was eventually discovered. We have seen the word bastion somewhere else on the site, in the welcoming message from Guide, where he called the site their bastion of defense. And that, it turned out, was the code to access Wayward Horizon. This let players look at the threads. All of these were in binary code, but they were easily decoded. The one by Neko, the mod who was ascended at the start of this arc, was titled The First, and his post read like this. What is? Where's this? Help me, please. I'm so scared. Where is everyone? I'm so lonely. Mommy, I'm so sorry. I promise I'll be a better son. I promise I'll be the little boy you've always wanted. I miss you. I'm so scared. Mommy, please just wake me up. Please, Mommy, where are you? Duskworld23's was titled The Fourth. I can't stand it. I can't even have a moment. Can't stand it. I can't even have a moment. No think. I want to kill myself, but I don't know how. Have to find a way before I lose myself. And then the user whose name was just question marks was titled The Seventh.
I can become God. I can become everything.
And this is when a fourth topic suddenly appeared, this time posted by Kelbris.
Get out.
And this was when players were promptly kicked out of Wayward Horizon and the password was reset. Not long after this, players who had donated to the PayPal that was on youshouldn'thavedonethat.net back in the day got their own update in the form of physical media. Basically, since funding for the ARG was a constant problem at the start of this arc, Jad decided to reward the top 50 contributors with something specifically for them. A newspaper clipping, a fake one, obviously, along with a letter that gave them more details about something that seemed to be related to the events of the game. I had a content warning at the start of the video, but here's another one. Content warning for a description of a murder-suicide. Community to approve demolition of Lawman residence. Earlier today, an inside source confirmed that the abandoned residence of the Lawman family will be demolished due to an overwhelming amount of complaints. The 2-story suburban home was the site of the shocking murder-suicide that claimed the lives of blank and blank Lawman and their son blank. All these are just blacked out, while leaving the community speechless. It's absolutely horrible. A neighbor who has requested to remain anonymous attests. No one expected it from them. They seemed normal. When we started smelling something, no one even gave it a second thought. I remember telling my husband that it was probably just a sewage leakage. In fact, it's become taboo to even mention the incident, and for good reason. One of the first officers on the scene would later recount entering the house to find Mrs. Lawman trying to feed her son, who officials say by then had been deceased for at least 6 days. 3 months may have passed since, but for the neighborhood the nightmare hasn't ended. Police are routinely called back to the house by terrified families claiming that they keep hearing unnatural noises coming from inside it. Several neighbors have since moved, insisting that the neighborhood is now haunted. A select few even went as far as to claim that something horrible was prying into their dreams. See Haunted on page 8. Well, that was disturbing. Alongside this newspaper clipping was a letter. Fate. Do you believe in it? If so, I wonder if you possessed enough clairvoyance to realize that I would be your fate. Can you feel your fingers begin to tremble, your heartbeat increase, the sinking feeling of dread as you start to realize, as it all starts coming back to you? Tell me, what does that feel like? Why did you continue to watch that poor, dim-witted young man? Did you sincerely want to help him? Was it morbid curiosity? Perhaps you just had some twisted interest in watching him fall. He has served his purpose and opened the way to you. It's been a while since we've spoke. Have you already forgotten the last time? Soon it won't matter. It begins again, but it isn't amusing without a struggle, without a challenge. So I invite you, come, rally together with the others who are damned. Try to fight for your pathetic existence, just as he did. You will fail, but I want you to try. You remember how to find me, how to find us. You can't fight fate. And then one more update occurred. A video entitled HB is Real was uploaded to Jadisable's channel. The video was supposedly a teaser for the game Jad was working on, and here's the footage. Despite players getting a glimpse of what was supposedly some game footage, Jad announced that the game was going to go on hiatus right after this was released, again. And though players did not know it at the time, this hiatus was going to be a long one. So long, in fact, that after a point, the fandom started to quiet down, the forums got less active, and people got a lot more pessimistic, thinking that the game would never be finished. But it took a couple years for that to happen, and for a year or so after this, Within Hubris thrived. And that is, in fact, when I joined in. And I want to talk about the community on there, and I will in a moment, but for now, the game was seemingly over. It kind of ended anticlimactically, but in fairness, I don't think anyone expected that it would take 9 years for Jadisable to return. I think everyone just assumed that it would just take 6 months at most before he got back, and then eventually 6 months passed, and then a year, and so on. For the time being, though, players could only wait and theorize. New friendships were made, and those friendships continued for quite some time. However, for a while, players had to say goodbye to the Moon Children, to Ben, and to the many questions that were raised and left unanswered by this rather baffling series of cryptic events that they just witnessed. End of Arc 2. This arc is fascinating to me. I used to think loads and loads about it as a kid. The Moon Children were characters who I fixated on. I imagined saving them, like, once the game came back. And I thought about what their lives may have been like outside of the cult. This was my first exposure to this kind of immersive storytelling that you get in ARGs. And to me, in like a weird way, it did feel kind of real. There were so many cryptic messages, little threads left unaddressed as well, and I just wanted to find out how it all end. Who, for example, was Mr. D? Why is Alex, whoever that is, helping us? What was the blackout? What does Ben, the entity, want with this group? Is he working with this Kelbris person? I didn't know, and I wanted to find out. Looking at it now, as an adult and someone who is a bit more genre savvy when it comes to internet horror and horror in general, it's not the most in-depth storyline for an ARG. Not a ton really happens. The players kept stumbling and fucking up. A lot of ideas are introduced here, and there's references to some great truth here, but it feels sort of like it ended before it was able to really begin, Like, what actually was achieved during this arc? We discovered some new information, but no one was saved, and really, the new information just created more questions more than anything else. You know what I mean? I didn't care about that, though, back then. And I don't care now. I loved all of this as a teenager, and I still do. All of these questions, as I've already talked about, gave players ample material to speculate on as well. So this next bit was shot later in the day, so the lighting's a little different. This section is quite rambly, and I apologize for that. This next bit and the bit discussed afterwards is important, though. Okay, I know this section of the video has been really rambly, but this next bit is important. I've got a few final bits and pieces. So, not long after Jad announced that the game was going on hiatus around this point, Ryukaki decided to host his own Q&A about his own part in the proceedings, and this caused some drama. As per Ryukaki's take on things, he'd briefly spoken to Jad about being involved, but he hadn't been given much direction, and he was still, even at this point, kind of annoyed by that. And it seemed, according to an out-of-character message from Jad, which he posted to Twitter after he found out that Ryukaki was doing this, he wasn't happy with Ryukaki either. I advise him against it because anything he talks about will probably just confuse and mislead other players even further. He doesn't even know the actual significance of what his role in the game was, and it won't be made apparent until the third arc is completed. So I don't see any point in conducting an interview now. He won't be able to shed light on pretty much, well, anything, and will probably end up confusing everyone even more. To quote the Q&A itself directly, everything, the entire, well, everything of the second arc was mine, save the idea to make me a part of it. I think he says second arc here, but I think he means his section of the second arc. Ad and I had kind of been talking before the second arc began, and I told him I'd be interested in helping with things as they went forwards. And instead of continuing to talk with me or anything reasonable like that, he went silent, threw my name out into the wild, and then stopped contacting me altogether. I didn't hear a word from him the entire time and had to make up the whole thing on my own. I'm not at all bitter or upset about it, keep in mind, it's just true, which is partly why I don't really need his permission to come out and talk about it. I've inconvenienced myself a lot for him, and then him throwing everything in you guys' face like this made me feel like shit, and it wasn't even my fault. Everything I did was canon, and Jad later validated it all, but he didn't help me through it or even say, hey, you've got free reign, do whatever you want. I don't mean to detract from any of his work, he did a really awesome job with the first parts of it, but I did wish at the time that he'd have been more in touch. Now, I'm kinda glad he wasn't, because while I had to take a week or so off of school for it, I ended up involved in a lot of other things because of this and a few lucky connections. Ryukaki also ended up disclosing that he was a brony, which led to great excitement on the forum as there were a number of them in the community at the time. Anyhow, then Jad responded after the Q&A was done and accused Ryukaki of game-jacking, claiming that his entire part of Arc 2 was not canon. This is why, incidentally, if you've seen other videos about this ARG from other creators, you've never heard mention of it. At the time, though, when his videos were being uploaded, it was thought to be canon, though, which is why I brought it up. I wanted to give you the feeling of what it was like to take part as best as I feasibly could. Some players on the forums did not agree with Jad's statement about this, and some even put Team Ryukaki in their forum signatures. Honestly, just a wild time in general. I'm nostalgic for it. I will say, if you look at the Ryukaki arc with the knowledge that Jad didn't really communicate about what was supposed to happen at this point, you can kind of tell. A lot of the Ryukaki arc is him in character talking vaguely about how he's in too deep or that he's in terrible danger, but it's all really vague and a little obtuse. It's someone making references to there being a greater story, but not really doing more to add or expand on it. Many actually felt at the time that Ryukaki's arc should be canon, if my memory is correct, believe it or not. The impression was that Jad had dropped the ball, had mentioned Ryukaki outright in the ARG, and had intended for him to participate in some way, and then for some reason had just stopped communicating with him, which was seen as kind of a shitty thing for him to do. This is all in the past. I don't know how accurate this telling of events is. It's entirely possible that Ryukaki assumed that he was supposed to do more and then just went ahead and did something regardless, and Jad didn't intend for him to be involved and just never told him that, which I'd also find a little strange, but this is all in the past, as I just said. His actions in Arc 2 have thus been deemed canon nebulous, if not outright non-canon. Poor guy. Now, why did I talk about it then if it wasn't going to be considered canon? Partially, I wanted to get across how it felt to be a part of events as they unfolded. For a long time, people thought that this was canon until Jad suddenly decided it wasn't, and I kind of wanted to have you watching feel that rug pull as well. Second of all, this is meant to be comprehensive, and that means that I am touching on things that may not be explicitly canon, which is why I keep talking about fan theories and little bits and pieces of fan-made media, and so on. Speaking of being comprehensive, I want to talk about a few things related to the forum, as well as the early Ben Drowned fandom. Specifically, I want to discuss a few pieces of fan-made content that are kind of iconic, in my opinion. For starters, there is Kelbris and Anthology, a YouTube video that's basically a stupid shitpost about the life of Kelbris, which to this day I find a lot funnier than I probably should.
Kelbris and Anthology, written by Alex Hall, Mrs. Finkelstein's second grade class. Once upon a time, there was Kelbris. People thought Kelbris was a scary dude, cause he was deformed and big and green, and because he didn't have eyes.
And it kind of just goes on from there. There was also like a small fan album of songs inspired by the ARG, which were all parodies of pre-existing songs. One song which was parodied was one which Jad Asabal himself at one point parodied when he was in high school. Jad's parody version of it was called Hey I'm White, and I believe it was a parody of some pre-existing rap song I'm unsure of the name of. I'm also very white and don't understand rap. The parody version that the Within Hubris players made was called Hey, I'm Ben.
Yeah.
Are you ready to beat this game?
Oh yeah. So it's Ryukaki, Ben the Angry Ghost, and Jaduzible. He's crazy.
We're about to get ready for the last arc here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys can handle it. You think they can? We're gonna make them. That's what I'm talking about. Alright, kids.
This even included a rap break by someone pretending to be Ryukaki, who proceeds to rap about his arc and how his bike was stolen. Next up is KingKong.wmv, which isn't actually a piece of fan-made content, but it was released about a year after the game went on hiatus in 2012. This is the first, major update that I remember being there for, funnily enough. What it was, specifically, was an official, yet non-canon April Fool's joke uploaded by Jad after saying he had new Ben content coming for everyone. He posted this video on April 1st, and I have to be honest, I have never gotten through it. It's basically just recreations of scenes from the original Ben Drowned videos, but Link is a Goron now, and also the song King Kong by Jibs is playing in the background, and that is why I can't share any audio of this with you, but just imagine that song, just Google it if you don't know it, is playing in the background here. There was also, and I don't have footage of it anymore, this group of IRL friends who were fans of the ARG who did several found footage style films set in its universe with their characters kind of engaging with the Moon Children. I can't remember the names of the films, but the name that they gave their team was, I think, Blue Shift Productions. And I think that goes to show, again, how popular even the ARG itself, not just Ben as a spooky ghost child, was. At the time, it was fairly popular. It was popular enough to warrant fan-made projects. Okay, so when I filmed this, I did not have access to these films that I am referring to right now, and so I was unable to share any footage from them. At least I didn't think I was going to be able to. But since then, someone has in fact found it on the Internet Archive. There's actually several films by them, I think their entire catalog, on the Internet Archive. There's one called The Prequel, one called Majora, one film called Born of the Moon, the third film is called The Fourth Day, and then the fourth and final film was called The Salesman, and there was talk at one point about them doing a direct adaptation of Arc 1, but that never came to pass. All in all, the forums thrived even without Jad's direct involvement, and then there was a new announcement. Jad had a new project he was working on that he wanted the player base's help with. Specifically, he was working on a movie titled Methods of Revolution.
Hey guys, it's Alex. I am the douchebag dressed up in his Sunday best, talking in front of a video camera, trying to appear professional. So basically this video is made to kind of announce A, my movie that I've been working on, and B, kind of the whole I'm jumping on the Kickstarter bandwagon deal.
This is sort of important. Bear with me. Don't worry. Methods of Revolution was planned as a sort of inspirational story about a college student who finds out what he wants to do in life, and Jad wanted the community's help to get it funded. In retrospect, this film sounds kind of like the cliched kind of story that Marble Hornets, another piece of online horror from the time, was kind of skewering. Like, that video series opened up with a backstory about how all the characters once worked on a student film called Marble Hornets, which was a similar, very try-hard kind of saccharine kind of drama, which is what, honestly, Methods of Revolution sounded like in retrospect. And I don't know, I find that funny. I find that funny because the plot of the in-universe student film that all the characters worked on in Marble Hornets is supposed to sound very try-hard and pretentious and contrived. And here was Jad doing something that felt exactly like that with complete and utter genuineness. I digress, sorry. Maybe it would have been great. We never really got to see what Methods of Revolution was going to be, so maybe my words about it are far too harsh. A Kickstarter was started, and it was funded, though some people in the community were hesitant about all this. It felt a little weird to some that he had seemingly dropped working on the ARG to start working on an entirely different project, and despite that fact was asking the community, which was focused on his last project, to help fund his new one when that older project was still unfinished. But some did donate. Quite a few did, in fact. And then the project just kinda never happened. What exactly happened here is a bit nebulous, but basically the project, like frankly a lot of Kickstarters made by 20-something creatives, just kinda fell apart. For a long time, this really soured people on Jadisable. The feeling in the community was that they'd been deliberately scammed, though this was not the case. Life got in the way, and the project fell apart for reasons that weren't disclosed, but have been since. This happens sometimes, especially when someone is young and trying to get a big project off the ground. In the years since, I've come to understand that if you did donate, Jad has begun to refund, assuming that you can show him proof, which is good of him, I have to say. So if you're watching this and you're one of the people who donated, well, maybe reach out to him. Maybe you'll get your money back after all these years. Now, believe it or not, methods of revolution is important. For one thing, Alex Hall, the creator, would attempt to make methods multiple times over the years, and in a way, he kind of did as part of the ARG. You'll see what I mean when we get there. And yes, rest assured, all of these points are going somewhere. With that in mind, though, I think it's time to move on to Arc 3. Players waited for years for this, and I think it's time for us to find out what they ended up waiting for. I'm going to mention one last thing, though, before we transfer over. This is super random. I should have put this somewhere else in the script. Did you know that in 2014, the kid who voiced Steven in Steven Universe played Ben in a fan film called A Terrible Fate? This is on his IMDb page, and there was even a trailer for this released to YouTube. I think this was just a small project he did along with his fellow teen friends because it's not available anywhere, and that frankly makes me a little sad. If anyone connected to the production of this is watching and is able and willing to share it, please do so. And yeah, with that fun fact, I think it's time to move on. We have one last arc to cover, and it is by far the most convoluted of everything that we've talked about so far. Oh! Hey there. Hey everyone again, it is Editing David here. I hope you enjoyed the video. There has been a slight change in plans as to how I am going to cover the rest of the story. This was originally going to be one single video, but as you can tell, this is the end of this video. The process of making this has been difficult. To be honest, it has been more than a little bit overwhelming. And as such, as a result of that, and for a variety of other reasons, I have decided to split the video in two. This is where things are going to end. This is where the ARG itself did go on a hiatus, so it is kind of appropriate for me to do so here. I might at some point in the future do a compilation where I combine this video with the one that I'll be working on very soon. I'm about like halfway through the script of that, maybe more than that. It's hard to say. This has been so much work, you guys. I've been working on this since like July or August of last year. It's been a process. Now, the next part's not going to take that long to come out. There were extenuating circumstances that led to this part taking that long, but it is going to take a few months. I'm admittedly not happy about doing this, but there's only so much time I can spend working on something like this before I start to get discouraged and overwhelmed. There's just so much work that goes into this, and I am doing it all myself. I'm just working at something, sometimes something really long when I do long videos like this. And when I do long videos like this, I'm oftentimes working with no feedback whatsoever, and it can get really disheartening and overwhelming just to feel, it just feels like I'm getting nowhere and I'm getting no feedback. And yeah, like, feedback's not the only thing you should work for, but after a point, it does get kind of discouraging. And so I'm giving myself a break. I am letting myself divide up the work. And I'm giving you all a chance to enjoy part of the story now. The next video should be part 2. I might do a different video in between them. The script for my next video after Ben Drowned and the next section of Ben Drowned are both done. So like, well, the Ben Drowned one's still a work in progress. So we'll see what comes next, but it's probably going to be part 2 of this. In the meantime, though, I apologize for the really wonky lighting of this. I hope you enjoyed. If you're curious about what happens next and you want to hear all about it, it's really weird. It's really strange. The story takes a completely new direction after this. I have some thoughts, not all of them positive, to be honest. And if you're intrigued to hear about that and you're new, please hit the subscribe button and hit that little bell thing at the bottom too, so you'll be notified. I can assure you it'll be worth the wait. All right, I'll speak to y'all soon.